Can everybody please take your seat? Can everybody please take your seat? Okay, good morning, everybody. The February 13th, Friday the 13th, Valentine's Day Eve Board of Directors meeting is called to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on the mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en el inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles por parte del servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares en la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land that we call home, the tribal nations of the San Diego region, have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory of homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Camuye, Tegueño, the Luceño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences and in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, first I'd like to welcome Councilmember Contreras. Welcome to your first meeting of the SANDAG Board of Directors. We look forward to working with you this year. I'd also like to announce that I am going to be pulling item 3.4 on the consent agenda due to a potential discrepancy in the amendments the Executive Committee recommended for approval last week. I've asked staff to look into this and bring this back to our next board meeting on February 27th. I'd also like to bring everyone's attention to the 2026 board manual, which has been provided to you today. It's right at your seats right here. And it's also available online for future reference. Our retreat, by the way, is coming up March 19th and 20th. You will see, you also have a brief survey at your seat. Please complete it and leave it on the table before you depart today. We're finalizing the retreat location and we'll share details with you very soon. In the meantime, I encourage you to plan to stay overnight as we will have an important express lanes discussion that will build off of today's item, first thing on Friday morning. Lastly, I'd like to congratulate staff, and this is a big deal, and announce to the board that SANDAG has received approval already of our 2025 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy from both our federal and state regulatory agencies. Rather than taking like 8, 9, 10 months, it took a couple. It was December, so good for us. The EPA's approval came in late January, and CARB recently gave their acceptance of our SCS on February 9th. The approval from CARB came within 2 months of our submittal compared to the 8 months it took for our 2021 plan. Approvals from both these agencies means that critical federal and state funding will continue to flow to the region. This is not just money that comes to SANDAG for our regional projects, but money that our cities are eligible for as well. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Mario.
Thank you. Good morning to all, and on some of our updates. Well, tomorrow, Tuesday, Chinese New Year's Day. So Happy New Year for those who celebrate. Happy Valentine's for tomorrow, and also want to recognize that February is Black History Month, all this month. As the chair mentioned, our regional plan got approved both by the state and the feds in record time, and that's a lot to do due to the hard work, the outreach that the team did, but also a lot of the input that this board gave and the work together that we came up. We were checking on the history. This is the fastest approval that an RTP has happened for us at SANDAG, in the history at SANDAG. So we're very, very happy about that. This week, I attended Mobility 21 in Sacramento. It's an advocacy trip for Southern California. We met with many legislators and the administration officials to bring up the need for additional funding for transportation. While in Sacramento, I also participated in the CalCOC meeting with fellow COOs across the state from different regional planning organizations and NPOs. Also met with the governor's office and with the secretary of CalSTAC, the California State Transportation Authority. We discussed SB 375, LOSAN funding, housing issues, as well as Otay Mesa East and cross-border issues. We are expecting that language will be printed and published on the SB 375 proposals that Senator Cabaldon is proposing. The team will be coming next week to the exec committee to present all that information. Regarding the refinancing of the bonds, you took actions. We had 5 times oversubscription on the bonds, so it increased our savings. Very happy to announce that we were able to refinance $324 million in Transnet sales tax revenue, where it's going to materialize on a savings of $61.5 million over the next 22 years. So this is above of what we had planned, and this is due to the oversubscription, and it's also due to the rating agencies giving us more favorable ratings. So we really appreciate all the support on this and congratulate our finance team also. We also have some pretty good news. We received some congressional earmarks for 4 projects. The San Isidro Transit Station received some funding. The Sorrento to Miramar Phase 2 project, the Ross Canyon Bridge replacement, and Buena Vista Lagoon Enhancement project. I do want to highlight this earmarks help us but haven't fully funded the phases for these projects. But in transportation, like many endeavors, you go step at a time and you fill the bucket so we can go and move forward with those strategies and those future phases. So we're very happy. We appreciate Representative Vargas, Senator Schiff, Representative Peters, and Representative Levin for their continued support. And we have been in contact also with Congressman Isa on some potential earmarks also for East County, but we're still working with his office on this one. Last week also in this room, we hosted, the CTC had their STIP and CHOP hearings. This is their two main funding programs that the state manage. The CHOP is the operational part of it. We don't have that much to do with it. It substantially goes to Caltrans, but the STIP is a very important program that funds our transportation capital projects. So we were able to present our STIP proposals as well as other regions. We will continue to work with the California Transportation Commission, and they will be hearing our proposal and taking action next March on their March meeting. So very excited about that. And also we're on our climate, California Border Resiliency Plan. We have a survey going on right now, and this is going to help us to better understand the impacts of climate hazards on our communities in the border region. Why is it so important? Because I always have said to whoever, I'm talking to, if you're not in a planning document, you're not going to have a project or you're not going to be part of a policy discussion. So there are going to be projects coming up in the border region, let it be for environmental purposes or transportation purposes or others, but there's also going to be a USMCA renegotiation. And if we have documents that can codify our needs and our funding needs, but also the big picture in the border region is going to really put a good, strong point of how we can go and ask for more things because it's well documented. There are multiple documents on many issues, including the Tijuana River issue, but the more things that we have that connect to each other, the better we are to be able to make our case with the different levels of government. So it's very important, this. And on construction updates on the Border to Bayshore Bikeway, first of all, I want to appreciate the communities, City of Imperial Beach, walking with us through this roller coaster of construction. We are in the last stretch. Hopefully we'll be paving 13th Street pretty shortly. We're locking in the dates based on weather. So there's communication going on to the public, but hopefully this will get us very close to finish this project. As well as I want to announce an absolute work window for the Lausanne rail project for next weekend. And this will be an absolute window. And this will be the weekend of February 21st, not this coming weekend. And also updating that our reception has moved to this first floor. We used to have the reception at the fourth floor. So the elevators were open to the fourth floor. Now our reception for the offices of SANDAG are in this at the lobby here, and then staff will come and get you and escort you to the third or fourth floor. So we changed that procedure a little bit. And also our offices will be closed Monday, February 16th for the President's Day holiday. That concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you, Mario. Okay, next I'd like to go over some reminders for public comment. To the public, I want you to know that we all really value your time and your commitment to your community as evidenced by your presence here or online to provide comment to this board of directors. Please remember that the purpose of public comment is to provide constructive criticism and relevant ideas related to the business of this agency and to the agenda topic that is being heard. First Amendment rights are honored here. During the non-agenda comment section, you can speak and share your comments on items that are not on the agenda, but are relevant to the business of SANDAG. We've always heard this, that when facing a problem or a challenge, the best way to handle it is to communicate with the people who have the authority or capability to resolve the issue effectively. To that end, a reminder that we are not the county, we are not the district attorney's office, we are not the city of San Diego, we are SANDAG. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Michael to please begin with non-agenda public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If you're online, please raise your hand now. And for the purposes of civility and an orderly meeting, we kindly ask that you refrain from using loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the Chair has determined that today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. And Chair, we have 4 in person and we have 6 online. First is Perita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good morning. We, Cesar and Purita, both seniors with existing medical condition and victims of ceramics manufacturing with kiln located, constructed, operated in 1984 in this ceremony designated residential zone. We are hurt physically, mentally, and finally, since reporting our community concern beginning June 2021. And up to this time, ignored, enacted by 11 elected officers of the city of San Diego. Why? We do not live in fear.
No. Really.
Why? We now live in fear. Mathematically, we could only sense by proportion the same gross neglect of the 1993 Tijuana River Valley pollution, air, water, land, coastal, environmental crisis. Response of the city, nothing except the presentation of Councilor Vivian Moreno of Border District 8 at SANDAG that it began in 1993. Exodus, number one.
Thank you. Your time has
Legislation.
expired. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by allegedly Audra.
Sir Mario, we know the limitations of SANDAG. This is an NGO. It's not the attorney's office, you're right. This is discussions, seeking for solutions. We dream for justice. Councilor Lacaba, I miss the smile of our mayor, City of San Diego here, who was seated here, and covers his face when we are trying to reach him via body language. We fear because there is a crime against society. We fear because there is a crime against property. We fear because there is a crime against person. There is a gross negligence by the elected 11 officials of San Diego. Nothing, not even a single centavo since they took regime to support the victims of San Diego's District 8, not to mention Imperial Beach, then mayor of Aguirre, Ma'am Aguirre. thank you for the winning that seat, and you are now seated as governing board member of APCD. Air Pollution Control District is owned by Mayor Gloria since 2019. Beware, city leaders, the EIR, for example, the Sycamore landfill close to my endeared city of Santi. Uncle Minto, please look at the threat to our health. We want to live there. That's why we always come there and join you in the council meeting.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Jeff Huter.
Once again, I want to remind you guys of the gross negligence, as he was saying, that is happening in the county of San Diego, is happening in each of your jurisdictions. You may not like to hear it. I don't like to hear that, but those children are about to have their family terminated by the county of San Diego, where they get new adoption. They're going to be adopted and they get new birth certificates when that happens and your family is erased. These children beg to go home. It is very profitable to sell children through foster care and adoption. Many of the Epstein victims are victims that have been trafficked in that way and continue to be trafficked. And for you guys to sit here and turn away and not even give a damn that that's happening, you are complicit in the crimes that are happening against these children and the abuse that's taking place. And it's really sad to see, because this is a battle against good and evil, and you guys are going to have to pick a side. It's not left or right, Republican versus Democrat. It's good versus evil. You pledge to that flag. You say one nation under God. Do you believe that? Because if you did, you would turn away and you would make sure, you would make damn sure that no children in your communities are suffering like this. And it's sad because it is so profitable, and all of you guys, all you care about is your money that you get. Your money whores, you will jump through hoops for that. And this is what people get incentivized to do with Title IV defunding. It's to rip family apart. When ASP came in, Adoption and Safe Families Act, it opened the pipeline. And so they manufacture cases. They neglect to actually protect children. Children have starved to death in the county of San Diego because they refused to act. When there is an abuse, they'll manufacture it. You guys need to course correct.
Thank you. Next is Jeff Huter, followed by Camilla Rang online.
Thank you, board members. I'm Jeff Huter, chair of Neighbors for Better San Diego. We do a lot of transit and planning analysis here in the city of San Diego. We're now doing this countywide. In a couple of weeks, you're going to be considering SB 677, which is being touted as a technical cleanup of SB 79. And I'm sure everybody knows and is struggling with the impacts of SB 79. SB 677 is not a technical cleanup. It vastly expands the scope of SB 79. This includes moving the city of Solana Beach from not being covered by SB 79 to becoming an SB 79 Tier 2 stop. For those of you in North County, the Sprinter is already considered Tier 2 under SB 79, but by changing the level of service rules to go from daily service to weekday service, which treats people who work on the weekends, I guess, is not really important. But what it does is it moves all of the Sprinter stops one train a day away from becoming Tier 1 transit stops. So that adds another 20 units per acre that you have to accommodate, and you're going to have to redo all of your local alternative plans if SB 677 is adopted. And this doesn't just affect the city of San Diego. We've done extensive analysis throughout the San Diego or the Southern California region. The train stops at Irvine, Fullerton, Anaheim, and Santa Ana would become tier 2 stops under this. Stops in Burbank and Glendale would become tier 2. So this isn't just a minor thing, and it's not just a Solana Beach thing. And so hopefully when you consider this, treat it as a new and expansive bill, not something that's just a cleanup.
Next is Camilla Rang online, followed by Truth.
Good morning, board members. This is Camilla Rang from Del Mar. I'm very happy to hear about all the funding money that is flowing into SANDAG, federal and state, as the chair announced in the beginning. That is wonderful. It is then a good timing to remind you of your obligation to provide beach access along the 1.6-mile Del Mar Bluff, where the train tracks are preventing safe access. This was agreed upon between you and the Coastal Commission in June 2022 as a mitigation for all the beach square footage that you are taking from the public for your bluff stabilization, so that you can continue running the train on the bluff until it has been relocated. Construction for the access across or under the track is supposed to start in April 2027, 1 year and 2 months from now, as in 3 years from the commencement of the bluff stabilization that started in April 2024. So I would like to ask, have you applied, excuse me, to the PUC for permits for construction? Have you completed any design? Have you secured the funds? If not, how are you going to be prepared to start construction in a year? This feels like something you should have started putting together a long time ago, but as I remember, money was taken from the Del Mar Mitigation Fund to instead build a bike path in Encinitas. Have you recuperated the funds to its rightful project, the Del Mar Mitigation? It's overdue, so please get started. Thank you so much.
Next is Truth, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hey, it's Truth. Thanks for using my name instead of my number. Happy Friday the 13th, SANDAG Horror Show. Let's get in the right mood with some double speak.
I think we're conflating exclusion with inclusion. To say that being more inclusive is exclusionary is precisely why we need to be more inclusive.
Can't make crazy up. Do you know she even put North County's Jim Desmond on the Border to Bayshore Committee? Lisa has again respectfully asked for relevant comments limiting free speech to SANDAG's alleged jurisdiction, yet it's hypocritical that this board had discussions on federal law enforcement of which it has zero jurisdiction. I'd like to know why some of this board pretends SB 54 suddenly doesn't exist. Why the sudden artificial push to make it an issue, playing politics with our tax dollars and time. The fact is SB 54 applies to the legal immigrant community of which illegal aliens are not part of. 8 U.S.C. Section 1373 says that, quote, nothing prohibits or restricts law enforcement from sending or receiving information regarding a person's immigration or citizenship status to or from federal immigration enforcement, end quote. The ARG's login screen pop-up says law enforcement shall not use any non-criminal history information. However, entering the country illegally is a crime. At a past SANDAG meeting, it was admitted that every highway has a device that collects data on innocent American citizens, and that data is even shared with other cities and states. Yet the data on guilty illegal aliens, like the criminal who killed an 8-year-old and severely injured a Marine in Julian, is not shared. This agency and this state are saying that drunk drivers, rapists, and murderers don't matter a centavo. Only deportations do, right? The removal of immigration-related records and felonies out of the ARGA system is directly impeding law enforcement at all levels and is in itself a federal crime, and we call that aiding and abetting. How dare you? Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold, followed by Teresa Valenzuela. Go ahead, Paul.
Good morning, SANDAG. Happy Valentine's Day and Chinese New Year's. Hope there's an update from the audit committee and an update on what data ARGIS is sharing with other agencies, which ones, And is it properly keeping sensitive data confidential? Too many ICE violence and murders and all of both Americans and immigrants. Now, AB 1421 for a gas tax study is a good idea. And there are a few other considerations which play into the proposed study. Currently, California collects 61 cents per gallon in gas taxes, which help pay for road maintenance and infrastructure. That revenue has been decreasing as more drivers switch to electric and other clean energy vehicles. Gas car users should not have to pay all of the taxes for road repairs. And especially since gas-powered cars are less expensive and used more by lower-income persons, gas-powered vehicles should not be paying all of the tax. EVs and other non-gas-powered vehicles need to pay a similar tax for fuel. Road users charged on gas, EV, hydrogen-powered, or other, if implemented equally, would be a heck of a lot fairer. But there are two important reasons why there should be a charge on EVs. One, EVs are heavier and damage the road more. And two, EVs also require more extensive fire and medical service if they catch on fire. So I hope you will get AB 1421.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Teresa Valenzuela, followed by Consuelo. Teresa, you're self-muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Teresa Valenzuela, founder of Well-Able Platforms. I'm here to ensure that the 2026 work plan involves the infrastructure required to break the 5-mile invisible wall. Currently, our power wheelchair users are capped at a 5-mile radius because the battery is our boundary. When we break this wall, we activate a multi-billion-dollar buying power of the disabled citizens, veterans, and seniors. The next OS is world-class digital brain for our regional flow, but it currently has an accessibility blind spot. By 2030, nearly 25% of San Diegans will be seniors. If NextOS cannot track, power, and guarantee access for this demographic, the system is obsolete before it's even finished. This isn't a social service issue. It's an economic mandate. When citizens are homebound by battery anxiety, San Diego loses economic output of its fastest growing demographic. The city was just awarded $6.9 million for smart growth, and I'm identifying the Cholas Creek and Balboa Park projects as the ideal living labs for our R&D. We must ensure that these bikeways and park improvements are truly complete by including the physical handshake for mobility users. The Master Mobility Plan is a great foundation, but to be functional, it requires secure, vandal-proof charging stations. As a principal consultant for Well-Able Platforms providing Accessibility OS, the virtual AI handshake that manages the secure power, I'm asking this committee to agendize the technical briefing for the Accessibility OS in your 2026 work plan. Let's make San Diego the first city in the world that offers a virtual handshake to its micromobility.
Next is Consuelo, followed by Marco Espinosa. Go ahead, Consuelo.
Okay. Just before you start my time, majority of what Audra was saying was not audible. It was like I don't even know how to describe it, but you could barely understand what she was saying. She was going in and out. So I just wanted to state that for the record. Okay, Consuelo here, another SANDAG retreat. It's exhausting to see how wasteful SANDAG is. the money that could be used elsewhere for the less fortunate in our county. And those updates from Mario were also discouraging. You act as though the bikeways are being heavily used. People don't have the luxury or the free time in this county to pedal a scenic route. And it's such a backward system, I swear. But yet, here we are. And here's my constructive criticism. SANDAG should be working effectively to accommodate the people's needs and not the globalists' agendas. SANDAG continues to behave as though our county is thriving when it doesn't take much to look around and see that our county is anything but thriving, from our homelessness issues to our struggling families trying to stay afloat. Regular inflation contributes to, and all of it is due to government failure and incompetence. But the reality is that the system is perfectly flawed. The majority aren't supposed to thrive. The little government worker bee slaves are the ones who are rewarded for their good deeds in keeping the system working. It's all so gross, inverted, and sad. SANDAG continues to try and strong-arm, hypocritically requesting what to say and not to say, while they themselves do the opposite. SANDAG continues to work and implement policies outside the jurisdiction of our county, yet requests that the ones who come and speak stay on topic and apply their words to what's happening within our county. It's just also gross again. And
Thank you. Your
I
time
hope you
has
all wake up.
expired. Next is Marco Espinoza, followed by our last public comment, Blair Beekman.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Marco Espinoza. Just want to say virtually present and happy Valentine's Day and a respectful Ash Wednesday. I yield back to the chair.
Next is Blair Beekman, our last public comment. Blair, yourself muted.
About that. I'm here. We'll try again. My time. Really nice of you. Yeah, Blair Beekman, thank you for the meeting today. Thank you for seeing my hand. Thank you for the words of Marco Espinoza. I thought that was nice to hear. I guess my public comment today, a non-agenda public comment time, is Truth offered some powerful words that reminded me that I think we have to be working on the future of ARGIS issues together as a whole community process. We have to better understand ARGIS and work. ARGIS is currently trying to develop even more clear practices and straightforward direct practices with federal agencies at this time. That was presented at the previous Public Safety Committee meeting. We have to address that. I think it's a problem, and we're not addressing that. You can't come up with upcoming reports. Good luck and continue work. We have 2 data collection centers in San Diego that collect serious data for federal and state agencies that we can better rely on and ask for ARGIS to be more of a ideal practice, I think, towards best practice. And there's certain practices we do need to be working on, but others we can simply relegate to 2 different large data collection agencies in San Diego besides ARGIS. I think we have to consider concepts like that and have to talk about the future of ARGIS, and we have a big discussion at this time. Good luck in those efforts. From that, as always, as I've been saying, I hope we're really working on the on concepts of de-escalation and demilitarization of ICE agents in San Diego. The federal government is working on 3 major concepts of that at this time. I think we should all be in agreement that we can be together in addressing those concepts and de-escalation, demilitarization of ICE, no matter your position on the current.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Any member non-agenda comments? I see none. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, if you're online, please raise your hand now. In person, we have Caesar, followed by allegedly Audra. And this is a consent agenda. Please please limit your comments to items on the consent agenda only.
Please, Sergeant Purita.
Just a second. Please state the consent agenda item you're speaking to. If comments are not related to the consent agenda, you will be asked to stay on topic. If you do not stay on topic, you will be muted.
1, 3.2, 3.3, any number you wish to hear from us. My God, thank you. We're still surviving. On the minutes, we are happy because it was attended by 29 thinkers. We only missed the intellectual capacity of our leadership, Mayor Gloria. Just to recall and look back, we need him like the other mayors attending consistently in this University of Life. On 3.2, my guardian angel here is looking at me whether I will be off or tangent from this discussion. This is a refinement, and we grace that. It should be conforming with the call of times. We heard you discuss about not only about mobility and transportation, but other elements like shelter, like society, like caring for our habitat. Councilor Luqadda was then the chair of Environmental Working Committee. This is a refinement, continuing refinement. Thank you. Thank you for your discussion. We are hopeful that we could survive in our twilight years, personally and community-wise. 3.3, to be accurate.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Paul the Bold online. Please identify what consent item you are speaking to.
It's interesting every time I speak, when I'm talking about children being abused, somehow the audio has issues. That's intentional. You guys have even lowered the volume before, where the chair has said, can you turn the volume up? We can't hear the speaker after me. So it's very negligent what you guys are engaged in, and it just shows that you are even more complicit than people would think. With the minutes, and you're sitting here and talking about ARGIS and, not wanting them to share data. It's interesting to see what you guys will do to protect illegal aliens. I'm sure that Bill Wells is the only one that had the balls to stand up against it and try and stop that kind of stuff from happening. I didn't see you guys get upset when people were being raped and murdered by them.
Please
in our
identify the
communities.
consent item you're speaking to.
Yes, the minutes. And you guys sit here and we care about free speech. Yet you sit and you impede it. You try and silence it. So how are you guys equipped to be making any decision when you're engaged in things that are going against the oath that you took? And when you're willing to protect people that are destroying our communities, there's a reason why funding gets cut. There's a reason why things are happening right now that time and again, I told you guys over and over while you sat and said the border was secure. Children have died in this county. They have been raped in their own bedroom. People have crossed illegally. And you want to protect them. And you don't want that data shared. But you're willing to share our data and collect it to use it to put us in your little 15-minute cities that you guys are creating under the United Nations agenda that none of you want to admit. So that in itself is treason. You guys should be the ones in jail.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold, followed by Truth. Please identify the consent item you're speaking to.
The Policy Advisory Committee stuff. Full bold, by the way. Not much to see here. Looks like no notes from the Borders Committee, the Regional Planning Committee, or the Chief Sheriff's Management Committee. Disturbing for the transparency of public operations, or were they on a pre-Valentine's Day spree or break or whatever? The meetings and events attended on behalf of SANDAG. Lots of meetings here. The Lausanne meeting sounds more interesting to SANDAG. Has there been any change in Del Mar corridor relocation? I know Maria spoke of some projects, but not about the overall relocation. Is there a more realistic siting of the new tracks so they don't get eroded in a few years? It would also be good if we could get a report on how long the weekend closure of the Lausanne corridor will continue and what alternatives were discussed, if any, at the meeting. Can SANDAG help? Hope the surfliner is safe too, by the way. Approval of the meeting minutes. Here comes the list of names like the Oscars. Who did what on the consent agenda, which was consented to? Surprise! It's over in seconds, not minutes even. It would be nice to know what the public speakers and board members actually discussed without having to find it on the video. Most of us can read a brief or pithy description of what actually went on a lot faster.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Truth, followed by Blair Beekman. Please identify the consent agenda item you're speaking to.
Sure thing, Michael. Item 3.1. The minutes say the January 23rd meeting was bass-ackwards. That's official. It was not, however, able to convey the full-blown IDS, ice derangement syndrome, that was on full wrong jurisdiction display. The minutes do, however, clearly state that the people who did not stay until the end of the meeting and are therefore clearly losers includes Joel, Dane, Katie, and of course, Manuela. I actually will give Bill a pass because Gary is already about 10 people's worth of an embarrassment to the city of El Cajon. Item 3.2, the February 27th agenda. I don't think shoving a proposed legislative program into consent is wise or transparent, especially when you have a board that loves to waste time giving personal and political whiny monologues. I'm looking at people like Kevin and maybe even Esther. If you got facts, bring them. If you don't, shut your mouth. There you go. Very clear what I mean. Item 3.3. I'm wondering why Jewel failed to send me an invite to the FACT board retreat on December 5th. I might have been able to go, but I was expecting the event last spring, so it feels like FACT plays games. Instead of Lisa meeting with Aquila, I think she should have met with pervert Scott Wiener instead, and should have brought a gavel for order, of course, and then to hammer down SANDAG's stance and the city stance and the county stance about how we're tired, sick and tired of bad state policies ruining this state. Item 3.4. The policies indeed have many discrepancies that will make David Zito mad. Courtney's name now added into the reporting part of the policy. That's great, but the address in policy number 402, section 4.1.2 is supposed to be the new SANDAG address on Union, not on B Street. Does SANDAG have a proofreader? I guess not, because it also has Mary Kay's name and number under section 5.6. What is going on with this agency? Thank you.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Consuelo.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman. I wanted to comment on the meeting minutes of January 23rd, the board directors meeting. You were talking about Argus issues. You do have a nice way to bring Argus items to committee and board of directors meetings, I feel. And this is now the time to really be working on Argus issues. Thank you. I hope there's a concerted effort to really address things. Like the San Diego Law Coordination Center I think is what the Data Collection Center is called for the federal agencies in San Diego. There's also CLETS. Those are two agencies you can get really hard, information about border crossing issues that worries so many. It can leave room for ARGIS to be more of an ideal place of practices that I hope we really want to consider and want to develop. I hope those conversations can be happening coming up. Good luck in those efforts. Good luck in how we interpret law. There's many ways to interpret immigration law, and I hope we can find a good middle ground between all of our sides at this time. With that said, you also have smart growth items on the consent calendar from January 23rd. Automatic vehicle cars are really coming in, it sounds like, to San Diego a bit, and I think it's really important we have to be addressing all the technology that surrounds the cars and what moves the cars and makes them work. If we do that technology practices and policies well, we bring that to the board meetings and make that a clear discussion and understanding, and develop good policies and open, accountable practices. I think that's an important step that we can feel safer about the process. It's uncomfortable as heck to me, this future. I'm not in favor of it at all, but I think that I'm
Thank you.
offering
Your
steps
time
as a
has
way
expired. Next is Consuelo, followed by Andrea Ebbing. Please identify what consent item you are speaking to.
Okay, so Consuelo here. I just will finish. Which item did you pull? 3.3?
3.4 was pulled.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking here. Okay, I was gonna finish 3.4, but yeah, no, that's okay. I'm not gonna speak on consent. Thank you. I pulled.
Our last public comment is Andrea Ebbing. Please identify the consent item you're speaking to.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing, speaking on the consent agenda meeting minutes. And I did bring this up at the last meeting, and several of us brought this up at the last meeting, and maybe a few meetings actually, about the meeting minutes just being like completely insufficient on purpose. If the stuff that we literally specifically requested to be on the record was on the record, then we could all go back and see the information was provided, see it was ignored, and see that nobody did anything about the continued abuse of the community. So I don't understand why that continues to happen. It just says our names. Again, we participate despite having our own lives to live. This is not for fun or theater or fame. This is to help contribute as members of the community. This is not a monarchy. It's not a corporation in terms of being private. It's actually all of ours. So when we participate, it's actually really, really rude to leave out our comments when we're bringing up really specific information that we took the time to research and understand and bring to the table. So that's one thing. Number two, the audio. Yeah, come on, guys. It's like the kickbacks. When I was talking about the kickbacks for immigration, because we all know that's happening. Can't blur out this whole thing, but you might try to, but then I'll keep on saying it. We'll have to do it over and over again. Yes, people are definitely getting kickbacks. The human trafficking situation that's happening in San Diego all around, it just can't be ignored. So you can't delete it out of people's comments. Okay, well, it's part of it. The meeting minutes is important. Meeting minutes and audio during the meetings, you can't cut out words like kickbacks for immigration or leave out our comments. And then there was Rebecca Jones. She had a moment and she was very brave and she made a whole bunch of incredible comments. I don't see anything on there about that. So I don't know. We're going to continue to hold you guys accountable, and we're going to continue to come with the information you don't want to hear. And
thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our public comment on consent, Chair.
Okay, are there any board member comments on consent? I see none. May I have a motion to approve consent, please?
So moved.
Moved by Sanchez, second by Jones, please. Use to vote. 1 is yes, 2 is no, 3 is abstain. Okay, that passes unanimously.
I just want to clarify that the slide says 3.1 or 3.4, but it's just 3.1 to 3.3, just for the record.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to Managed Lanes 101 presentation. Mario, are you going to introduce this? And then we'll turn it over to the team.
We have a robust group presenting today from our neighbors and their experiences to our partners in Caltrans, as well as our own staff, Antoinette Meyer, our Director of Planning. This will be an ongoing conversation regarding express lanes during the whole year. There's a lot of subjects that we need to discuss. So any journey starts with the first step. So today we're doing the 101 discussion, and this will lead to further discussions as the year progresses for decisions that we will be presenting to all of you. So I'll pass it on to the team.
All right, thank you, Mario. Good morning. My name is Antoinette Meyer. I'm the Senior Director of Planning here at SANDAG. And as Mario said, this is the start of many conversations that we're going to be having over the course of the year on managed lanes. And the reason for that is that we are ready to start implementing the next generation of managed lanes, starting with the express lanes on the I-5 and the 805. So today's presentation is really foundational. We're going to, take a deep dive into what managed lanes are, more specifically express lanes, which are a type of managed lanes. I'll share our region's history with managed lanes. I'll talk about the different policies and plans that govern managed lanes. And we'll talk a little bit about the different topics you can expect to weigh in on over the coming months. I have a very esteemed panel joining me today. So Alan Kassup, the Chief Deputy at District 11, is going to share what's happening around the nation and the state. And then we're very lucky that Jennifer Crossan and Kirk Avila agreed to join us today from Riverside and Orange County to share their experiences with express lanes and kind of what their board went through to tackle some of these topics like goals and business rules. So at the end of the presentation today, we want to get some initial input from you on goals for express lanes. This is really the first step in determining how we're going to operate facilities going forward. But this won't be your last opportunity. We're just getting initial information today. At the board retreat, we'll spend a little bit more time on this in March. So let's start with the basics. What are managed lanes? Managed lanes are not one thing, but it's a broad term that is used to describe highway lanes that are designed to move people efficiently by managing access, adjusting access based on things like vehicle occupancy, time of day, congestion levels, and tolling. And there's a wide variety of managed lanes. Some of the managed lanes that you see on the slide we have in our region today, and some of them are under study. So examples are HOV lanes or carpool lanes like we have on the I-5 and the 805, the transit lanes that we have at the entryway of State Route 163 in downtown and on I-15 in mid-city, reversible lanes like on the Coronado Bridge, toll lanes like the State Route 125, and truck lanes, which we don't have in existence today, but they are under study for the State Route 52. And then, of course, the real topic for today's discussion is express lanes. Express lanes use pricing to ensure that the lanes maintain a really high level of service and to encourage ride sharing. So for example, the I-15 express lanes are free for carpools, van pools, and transit, and then single occupant vehicles can pay a fee to access those lanes. And that fee goes up when congestion goes up, and that's to ensure that the lanes don't get too congested and that the trip is reliable for everyone using the lanes. Revenues from the tolls are invested in operations and maintenance and covering the cost of transit service in the corridor. And the I-15 express lanes are currently the only express lanes that we have in the region, but the Transnet Ordinance and the regional plan calls for a complete system of express lanes on major corridors throughout the region. And as I mentioned, 2 of those projects are funded and ready for construction, the I-5 and 805 express lanes. So why express lanes? Express lanes offer a cost-effective and a flexible solution for reducing congestion and ensuring reliable travel times, even during peak periods. And because express lanes take traffic off of the general purpose lanes, it improves travel for people and goods in all of the lanes on the corridor. They encourage ride sharing. In fact, we have the highest number of van pools on our I-15 express lanes currently. And you'll hear later in the presentation from Riverside and Orange County, but the ultimate vision is that our express lanes network will connect to this larger network statewide and create a really seamless travel experience for people crossing county lines. So there are a mix of federal, state, local laws, policies, and plans that govern managed lanes. Federal regulations allow for the conversion of an HOV, a carpool facility, to a hot lane or an express lane. Federal regulations also require that managed facilities maintain a certain level of service. So if speeds are consistently low, below a certain level, the federal government expects that the operating agency will change their management strategy and bring that facility back up to an acceptable level. And that is the case with 5 and 805, as I'm sure you've noticed. They're not performing consistently, so it's time to modernize them and improve the performance. State regulations allow for an agency to develop and operate express lanes if certain conditions are met, requirements are met, and approved by the California Transportation Commission, or the CTC. Also, Caltrans District 11 maintains what's called a managed lane system plan. You'll hear about that from Alan in a moment. This plan's updated every 4 years, and it's consistent with our regional plan and the Transnet ordinance, which all call for that complete system of express lanes. Managed lanes are not a new concept for our region. In fact, we have quite a long history. We were early innovators. We were considered a national model with the I-15 express lanes. And you'll see on this slide that our very earliest regional transportation plan back in the early 1970s had a plan for managed lanes. The first HOV facility in San Diego opened on State Route 163 in the 80s, and the reversible lanes on the Coronado Bridge opened in the 90s. We were the very first pricing pilot on the I-15 in 1996, and that pilot was the predecessor for the current I-15 express lanes. And that network continued to expand in the 2000s. The voters approved managed lanes in the Transnet Extension Ordinance in 2004. The current I-15 express lanes were constructed. HOV lanes were added to the North Coast Corridor and the I-805, and SANDAG purchased the SR-125 toll road out of bankruptcy. This slide uses animation to show the progression of those lanes over the last 50 years, starting back in 1969 with the Coronado Bridge, then the evolution of the I-15, the carpool lanes being added to the 5 and the 805, the 125 being purchased, the reversible lanes on the Coronado Bridge, and most recently, the HOV lanes that were added to the 56. So I'm going to hand it over to Alan, and he's going to talk about what's happening around the nation, what's happening around the state.
Good morning. As Antoinette said, we were the first in San Diego. We were with I-15 Express Lane was the first dynamically managed express lane in the nation. Since then, there are now 72 very similar facilities spread out through the nation. And you see, it's not just concentrated in one part of the nation or one type of urban environment, lots of different needs. And that's because they can definitely be tailored for the needs of that specific state, that specific county, and those users. If we zoom in a little bit more, there's already 500 centerline miles in California of express lanes and many more under development, 500 already in operation. It's a little bit, they can be looked at as individual segments, but really important that ultimately it's a network, right? And the network needs to work together. So it's a little bit like a three-dimensional game of chess, right? We need to have enough flexibility for the corridor to meet the needs of that corridor and of those customers, but we need to have enough interoperability, and the customer needs to recognize the facility regardless of where they are in the county or throughout the state, right? It needs to be user-friendly. And the third dimension is these lanes change over time because traffic and patterns are not static. And so we're constantly, as a group, reevaluating how do we get the most out of our managed lane system. And that's where the managed lane system plan comes in. As Antoinette said, it's done every 4 years. Caltrans leads it, but it's a very collaborative and integrated process with the regional planning process. And the purpose of it is we look at the existing managed lane system and we ask, are we getting the most out of it? Do we need to update the operational rules? Are there gap opportunities that we need to close? Can we bring in new segments to make it even work better? Are there changes in the region, how they'd like to use the managed lanes, and how do we address that? Perfect example is the regional rapid system, right? So as the planning process goes in the county, you'll say, hey, I want to add more rapid between, say, Chula Vista and Serrano Valley, and the rapid needs to work, it's going to work on the freeway. Okay, so we'll address that through the managed lane systems plan and start making sure those facilities can support that service, right? Key to the rapid is reliable, fast, timely service. And so that's why the managed lanes have a key piece of that. And so, as we said, the managed lane system plan sort of informs the regional transportation plan, and regional transportation plan informs the future managed lane systems plan. Coming out of that is our early starts, right? What do we need to go work on? And so in the last plan, and then influencing the RTP, what came out of it was essentially 5 new freeway elements that are high priority for both you and us. Those examples would be the 78 corridor, getting the managed lanes both on the ends at 5 and 15, but across the whole corridor. Managed lanes in 52 that Antoinette was talking about. Closing the gap on 805 between 94 and 52, right? We've got managed lanes north and south. We've got this gap in the middle. And then also on 15, we've got a gap there from 8 to Claremont Mesa. And so those are pieces that we're actively starting on. And I forgot one, and I don't want to be remiss. Completing the managed lanes at the north end of I-5 between 78 and 76. So that came out of this process, but also reevaluating our existing system. As Antoinette said, some of them, they are degraded. And so the plan said, hey, it's time to start looking at converting or evolving those systems. All of these systems were designed and planned and environmentally cleared with the idea that they would evolve over time. And so when we get to 5 and 805, that was our aha moment from the planning process. It's like, those aren't working, time to move to the next phase. So that's where we've been. And with that, I will pass it back to Antoinette.
Thank you, Alan. So as we prepare for that next phase, it's really important that we confirm what the goals are for the system, because the goals drive the business rules or determine how the facility is operated. So this slide has some proposed goals, and we're going to bring the slide back up at the end of the presentation so that you all can react to it and provide some comments on it. But these goals are really based on our experience with the I-15 express lanes and consistent with our partners around the state. And you'll hear about Riverside and Orange County's goals later in the presentation. But the goals are about faster and more reliable travel, reducing congestion.
Oh, just sorry to stop your flow there, but I think I want to make just a point of clarification. When Alan talked about the degraded the lanes, he was referring to what Antoinette mentioned, that the federal government has the requirements for those speeds. So we refer to degrading a lane is that we're not meeting our federal requirements on that managed lane. So we need to change the strategy. If not, we're potentially under penalty of not having the requirements that the funding agency gave us. So that's why we need to be thinking of upping our strategies. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's good, because that's why the goal is also around faster and more reliable travel, reducing congestion, encouraging ride sharing and providing more choices, maximizing our existing infrastructure, really getting more out of it by using technology to improve traffic flow, having a system that can adapt to changing conditions over time, just like Alan was talking about. These are not meant to be static facilities. They can change as conditions change. And then a sustainable system, so a system that can operate effectively for years to come and cover the cost of operations and maintenance and the services in the corridor. Then once we get the goals confirmed, we can develop business rules, and the business rules are intended to support those goals. So business rules cover things like performance thresholds. Are we operating the facility, like Mario said, to maintain a certain speed? Pricing structure. Are we going to adjust the price based on congestion levels and manage congestion through pricing? Eligibility and access. Who's allowed to use the facility? How do they access the facility? Occupancy. Is it 2+ or 3+ for cars to access the lanes for free or at a discounted rate? Toll collection. Are we going to require transponders or some other technology to pay tolls, and will there be exemptions? And then enforcement, how will we enforce the facility? Will we continue to partner with CHP for that? And what is the penalty for violation? So all of these are questions that we need to answer with your help over the coming months to develop those business rules. We also need to decide who operates the managed lanes, and there's different operational models around the state. In our region, SANDAG has been the toll authority, and that's consistent with our neighbors. But there are examples of other types of operational models like a JPA, or a Joint Powers Authority. So that is a collaborative formed by 2 or more public agencies. A recent example is I-80 in Yolo County, where SACOG, the MPO, and the Yolo Transportation District and Caltrans formed CARTA. There's TCA, the Transportation Corridor Agencies in Orange County, and that consists of different cities and counties as members. And then in some parts of the country, managed lanes operations are privately operated through different types of public-private partnerships. So the I-395 in Virginia, VDOT owns the facility, they set the policies, but a private vendor carries out the operations. And then State Highway 130 in Texas is privately operated, privately maintained by the SH-130 concession company. So now I'm going to hand it over to first Riverside and then Orange County to talk about their operational models, their goals, their policies, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. And I do want to offer technical questions. Feel free to raise your hand. We're happy to answer those while we're going through.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. I'm Jennifer Crossan, the Director of Toll Operations for Riverside County Transportation Commission. RCTC operates the 15 express lanes and 9 new express lanes in Riverside County. We also own and operate 2 buildings near the intersection of the 15 and the 91. One building serves as the Regional Operations Center, where we have the 15 Express Lanes Customer Service Center, and the other building houses our on-road toll operation systems maintenance team. We're setting various express lanes and recently awarded a progressive design build contract for the southerly extension of the 15 express lanes. Sorry, that should have been automated. The blue line on this map is OCTA's segment of the 901 express lanes. It meets RCTC's 901 express lanes, shown in magenta, at the county line where customers can exit from the OCTA lanes, continue through the RCTC lanes, or enter the RCTC lanes. The gold line is the existing 15 express lanes operated by RCTC, which is made up of 4 tolled segments. The green circle is where the 91 and the 15 are joined together with 2 express connectors, 1 in each direction. With the adoption of the toll policies for each of the Commission's express lanes, the Commission has adopted the express lanes goals shown on the screen. It is this set of goals that drives the operation of the express lanes. In 2002, Assembly Bill 1010 allowed OCTA to purchase the 901 Express Lanes franchise from the California Private Transportation Company. AB 1010 also eliminated the existing non-compete clause that prohibited any capacity-enhancing improvements from being made to SR 91 until the year 2030. The elimination of the non-compete clause allowed much-needed improvements to be planned and implemented within the SR 91 corridor. In 2008, SB 1316 authorized an extension of OCTA's tolling authority to 2065, and for the Commission to impose tolls and fees for 50 years, and to construct, operate, and maintain the tolled facilities on the SR 91 in Riverside County. SB 1316 also required the creation of the State Route 91 Advisory Committee with specific responsibilities. This advisory committee is composed of board members from RCTC and OCTA. SB 1316 requires an annual implementation plan for SR 91 improvements. Consistent with legislation, OCTA and RCTC, in consultation with Caltrans, coordinate and complete the SR 91 implementation plan on an annual basis. This plan includes proposed projects and completion schedules for transportation improvements along the corridor. Improvements to Metrolink, Express Bus, the express lanes, freeways, interchanges, new east-west highway corridors, and high-speed rail are all included in that plan. OCTA and RCTC have a commitment to providing a seamless experience for customers traveling the 91 express lanes across 2 counties. The fundamentals that frame our joint operation are outlined in a cooperative agreement. The agreement initially served to ensure the construction of the extension was coordinated with the OCTA to minimize disruption to their then operating 91 express lanes. It has also set forth the principles for joint customer service and traffic operations. It includes principles for joint contracting, cost sharing, and sharing of customer accounts and joint marketing. OCTA allowed RCTC to enter the existing 91 operation as an equal operating partner. This partnership has resulted in synergies amongst staff and contractors, the evaluation of new technologies and legislative requirements, resulting in a fiscally prudent operation which provides a high level of customer service. This relationship is unique in that we truly operate as partners, allowing us to have a voice in all elements of how we conduct the operation. The formation of this partnership took over a decade, and we have been operating the 91 express lanes together for almost 9 years. OCTA and RCTC are proud of our ability to work together to deliver excellent customer service in the achievement of our respective goals. In this photo is a walk-in center of a joint walk-in center for the 91 express lanes and the 15 express lanes, further extending our partnership. The 8-mile extension of the 91 express lanes into Riverside County was part of a $1.4 billion 91 corridor improvement project. The project was financed by issuing toll revenue bonds and with the use of measure funds. The RCTC 91 express lanes has approximately $680 million in outstanding debt and has received increasingly positive investor ratings with each year of operation. The corridor improvement project included the construction of the express lanes and the addition of general purpose lanes and auxiliary lanes and improved interchanges, ramps, and local streets. In 2017, RCTC opened the 8-mile extension of the 91 express lanes between the Orange County and Riverside County line and Interstate 15. The original 91 express lanes project included an express connector to both the north and the south of the 15. The funding only allowed for construction to the south. In 2017, the Commission received an additional $180 million in Senate Bill 132 funding to construct the then shovel-ready $270 million connector to the north, completing the 91 express lanes project. The new connector opened to traffic in 2023 and provides a direct transition between the RCTC operating 91 express lanes and 15 express lanes. The direct connectors between express lanes allows RCTC to provide users a seamless transition through one of the busiest interchanges in the nation. The direct connection of the 91 express lanes to the 15 express lanes through tolled express connectors is a unique element which has not been replicated in the United States. Some highlights for the very popular Riverside County 91 express lanes. And by the way, the 91 express lanes has exceeded its projected transaction volumes from the first day it opened. With the 21 million annual trips, the 91 express lanes generates over $100 million in revenue annually. As I mentioned, the joint operation with OCTA is unique and helps to minimize operating costs, which has led to over $98 million in improvements to the 91 corridor funded by surplus toll revenue. The 91 express lanes westbound during morning peak period saves drivers 15 to 25 minutes, and the eastbound afternoon peak period saves drivers around 5 minutes. The 91 express lanes debt is scheduled to retire in 2049, at which time the express lanes will be turned over to the state. Moving on to the 15 express lanes. The 15 express lanes is a Section 166 value pricing project. that cost $472 million. It was funded with a TIFIA loan and sales tax bonds. The 14.6-mile express lanes runs from Cajalco Road in Corona to the SR-16 near the San Bernardino County line. In 2024, RCTC paid off the TIFIA loan after only 3 years of operation. The loan payoff freed up funds that were required to be held in reserve, removed restrictions that impacted our ability to extend to the south, and reduced administrative requirements and borrowing costs that were prohibiting our extension to the south. The payoff schedule was a 2-year plan that will be completed this year. The 15 express lanes has 34.5 million annual transactions and generates $54 million a year. The customer service and traffic operations are separate from that of the 90 express lanes, but the 2 express lanes share the same on-road toll system provider. The 15 express lanes saves morning commuters about 5 minutes and the afternoon commuters 10 to 15 minutes. The terminus of the southbound express lane is severely congested due to the narrowing of the 15 general purpose lanes at its final segment. Thus, the extension to the south being studied and planned for. I was asked to touch a little bit on how policies are determined. During project planning, a concept of operations was developed in coordination with FHWA and Caltrans that outlined the policies such as hours of operation, H-over requirements, and discounts. Those policies were adopted by our commission through a resolution that included a public hearing. The toll rate setting policy underwent the same process and also included the solicitation of comments from the SR91 Advisory Committee as required by statute. Customer account policies are adopted by resolution, and the toll evasion processes and penalties are adopted by ordinance. And I'm going to turn this over to Kirk.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board, CEO Orso. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel this morning. As introduced, my name is Kirk Avila, General Manager of OCTA's Express Lanes programs. I've been at OCTA over 30 years, and at that time, I was able to participate in the acquisition of the 91 Express Lanes that Jennifer talked about, as well as work on the construction of the 405 with respect to the tolling elements. Here you see both of our express lane facilities that are included in our portfolio. Having worked on both the 91 acquisition as well as the construction of the 405, I can say from my personal perspective, it was a lot easier purchasing an ongoing enterprise than building one from the ground up. On this page, you see a number of statistics on the 91 as well as the 405. But one thing I do want to highlight is similar to RCTC and Jennifer, OCTA has a very limited dedicated tolling staff, but we do utilize a lot of the resources of OCTA, for example, procurement departments, our government relations, our construction. In addition to that, we also contract out with various vendors. Here's a map of Orange County that highlights the express lanes for both of our facilities. The blue on the eastern segment of the slide shows the 91 express lanes connecting into Riverside County. And on the west, you see the 405 express lanes connecting into LA. When you look at the travel pattern data for the regions, we do see that more people come into Orange County from San Bernardino and Riverside using the 91 express lanes. And that's because of the fact that housing is less expensive in that area and traveling into Orange County for the jobs. And a similar situation exists with the 405 express lanes. We have more people from LA County traveling into Orange County. And as my CEO likes to joke around, he says that the LA County is Orange County's largest suburb. Jennifer touched upon the map here on the 91 express lanes. I won't go over this again. OCTA segment's on the left, RCTC segment is on the right. We do have 10 miles in Orange County, and the only place you can get in and out is at the terminus, at the 9155, as well as the county line. The next several slides, I'm going to focus in on the 405 express lanes because I know SANDAG has experience with acquiring a facility similar to what we did on the 91 express lane. So here focuses in on the map of the 405. You can see the Interstate 405 freeway traverses the county at an angle, yet you have the streets and roads on a grid basis. So that makes the construction of this project very complex and extremely expensive. But this map also highlights the fact that there are various ingress and egress points on the 405 express lanes, which differs from the 91 express lanes. Each one of these segments are priced separately. And if you take the entire length of the facility, the most expensive route is $25.95. The minimum toll rate is for the entire segment $2.65. One thing I did neglect to mention on the 91 express lanes, our maximum toll on the Orange County side is $9.35 and $1.95 as the minimum toll. In Orange County, we have a half-cent sales tax that's called the Measure M, and Measure M program allocates 43% of the taxes to freeway programs, 25% to transit programs, and 32% for streets and roads. As part of the freeway program, we did have a 405 improvement project. The original scope of that project had improvements of adding one general purpose lane in each direction. Also had improvements to local interchanges, bike paths, sideways, and streets and roads. But about early on in the scope of that project, our board elected to add an additional HOV lane to the project. It combined with the existing HOV lane to convert both of those into an express lane. Total cost of the project, as you can see, was a little bit more than $2 billion. And of that $2 billion, the majority of that was funded through our half-cent sales tax program. However, the toll road portion was financed with the TIFIA loan. Jennifer talked a little bit about her experiences with the TIFIA loan. On the 405 express lanes, the entire amount of the express lanes was funded with the TIFIA loan, and therefore all the tolls are dedicated to pay back the TIFIA loan. We do operate under a 40-year agreement with Caltrans for the facility. And on this page, you'll see some of the operating aspects of the express lanes. It is tolled on a 24/7 basis. We do have a traffic operations center that takes a look at the corridor with all the cameras feeding into this center. We do price based upon congestion-based pricing with valid accounts. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we are minimally staffed. Therefore, we do contract out for a back office service provider, customer service center provider, in-lane systems. We do have an enforcement contract with CHP, and then we do contract with Caltrans to handle maintenance in the corridor. Getting to tolling on the 405 was not easy. You would think with respect to OCTA and owning and operating the 91 express lanes for a period of time, it'd be an easy path. It was not for us. Those board members that were around when we purchased the 91 express lanes were not around necessarily when we made the decision to go to tolling on the 405. This provides a little bit of a timeline of our process and what we did at OCTA. One of the first things was to select an ad hoc committee member of board members, and those board members were board members that represented the corridors that that toll facility was going to be placed in, as well as our chairman of our board and a chairman of our finance committee. What we did with the ad hoc committee is we used it as an opportunity to educate them and go through various different business rules, policy decisions, financing processes, financial plans, so on and so forth. So about a year later, after creating that and after spending a lot of time with these board members, we did take our initial toll policy to our board for approval, in addition to a financial plan. And at the same time, we were going through the process with the California Transportation Commission to get tolling authority and submit the AB 194 application to make sure that we were able to get tolling in the facility. But all in all, if you go through the entire timeline, it's about 8.5 years from when we started that ad hoc committee members to when we opened the toll express lanes in December of 2023 to get to that point in time. As Jennifer mentioned, she highlighted the goals in there for the 91 express lanes, very similar to OCTA. These are our goals, and these are publicly adopted by our board and included in our toll policy for the 405 express lanes. The first three goals really highlight and focus in on throughput, providing predictability and congestion-free travel. The last three bullet points focus in on making sure that there's financial viability of the project and we have money to pay for the bills. Now, as we sit back here for OCTA, it's been about 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years and 3 months since we opened the 405 express lanes. We have performed a number of analyses to see what has traffic been like for the public using that 405 corridor since we've opened the facility. So on this page, we highlight what traffic looked like prior to construction, and that's represented by the blue bars, October of 2017. And then the orange bars represent several years later, October of 2024, after the project and the express lanes have opened. This slide focuses in on the HOV lane as well as the express lane. So the October 2017 is the HOV lane, and the speed that it took to get from one end to the other, basically from the SR 73 near South Coast Plaza, if you're familiar with Orange County, all the way to LA County line. So the travel amount of time that it took for that pre-project was about 37 minutes heading northbound, that's shown on the left-hand side, and southbound is shown on the right-hand side, about 33 minutes. And you can see after the HOV lanes were converted to an express lanes, how the travel times changed and dropped significantly. Dropped northbound about 22 minutes and about 16 minutes on the southbound direction. In addition to looking at the HOV as well as the express lanes, we also took a look to see what was happening on the general purpose lanes. So this slide shows the same sort of data in the same format that the previous slide. However, it does focus solely on the general purpose lanes. So you can see the blue bar represents it took about 36 minutes to travel that 14-mile corridor. And since we've opened the express lanes and added the general purpose lanes in the corridor, the travel times dropped to about 24 minutes. So an improvement of about 12 minutes on the northbound and an improvement of about 6 minutes on the southbound. So individuals that never pay a toll or never use the express lanes because of the general purpose lane improvements that we have added have benefited from our project. I mentioned earlier with respect to our toll policy and our goals, we are about throughput, making sure that we can move the most people through that corridor and the most cars through the corridor. But as a result of pricing for that throughput, there are excess toll revenues that are generated. And these excess toll revenues are above and beyond the operational and capital needs that are needed for the facility. So OCTA, through a number of years on the 91, developed a policy for what to do with those extra funds, and we're currently going through that same process on the 405. With respect to the 91, in both Orange and Riverside County, there's been over $2 billion reinvested back into the corridor since OCTA acquired the 91 express lanes. And with respect to the 405, we are generating excess toll revenues. However, because of the financing component that we have in place with the TIFIA loan, those funds are tied up in the trustee and won't be available for OCTA until 2029, 2030 time period. So we're using this time right now to develop an expenditure plan and how those funds are going to be used. Now, I mentioned OCTA acquired the express lanes, 91 express lanes back in 2003. So over the last 23 years, OCTA has a lot of experience with respect to managing and operating a toll facility. In that time period, we've had the opportunity to experience economic growth, recession, pandemic, what happens when you raise tolls, what happens when you lower tolls, and also what happens when you add general capacity, the competition right next to the express lanes. So with that experience, we've had some lessons learned, and we applied those on the 405 improvement project. You can see those are listed here. Meeting with the stakeholders and community is very important. OCTA during the construction period had approximately 600 meetings with constituents along the corridor. Another takeaway and lesson learned is setting up realistic timelines. I've had the opportunity of working on 4 different back office deployments, and every single one of them have been late, whether it's been late a couple months, a couple days, or a year. I thought it was me, but I'm talking to my peers. I did realize that we're not the only ones that have had experiences with delays with back office systems. But with construction as well, there's always delays with respect to weather, archaeological findings. When you have multiple agreements that need to be executed, sometimes that takes a lot of time. So really having a contingency plan in place for timing is really important. Next lesson we learned is transparency. It's very important to make sure you're upfront with the public, upfront with your customers, to make sure that they are aware with everything that you have in place. Our toll policies that went through our board of directors were debated. They were included with press briefings. We wanted to make sure everyone knew what we were doing and how we were doing that. And that was very important for us and our board. And then lastly, with the express lanes, we're in the service of providing a benefit of moving a person from point A to point B. And for that person, you have to run that operation like a business. And in doing so, you have to be very disciplined. You have to have checks and balances. You have to have policies in place to know if there are funds, where are those funds being generated, where those monies are being expensed, and if there are monies left over, where are those monies going to be invested back into the community. So those are our lessons learned, and that's my presentation. And thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer questions at the end.
All right, thank you both. So we have a lot of conversations that need to take place to inform our regional policy. We need to confirm those goals. We need to have conversations about the business rules, operational model, outreach, meeting our federal and state requirements. And that's the first step, really, in getting to the AB 194 application. AB 194 application is the application to the CTC, requesting that we can toll the lanes on the 5 and the 805. And our goal is to submit that application to the CTC in the fall. And that's because the 2 projects, the 5 and 805, are both funded, and they have some funding deadlines. So we need to get started on implementing those projects. And this is really the roadmap for getting there. So later this month at your next meeting, you'll be having a conversation about the back office system. We'll be bringing you a budget amendment to move money into a CIP for the regional system development. We're working on toll and revenue studies. So we'll have a traffic and revenue study. So we'll be bringing that to you. Caltrans has been doing an equity study and doing a lot of outreach on the corridor. So another topic that we'll be bringing to you as well. So today we really do want to get some initial feedback, though, on the goals. Again, this is just the first bite at the apple. It's not the only opportunity you're going to have to weigh in on this. We'll leave the slide up for discussion, but we did cover a lot of material today. I'm sure you have questions for the panel. So I want to provide adequate time for that as well. And I'll hand it back to the chair to go ahead and kick that off.
Thanks so much to all of you. Okay, board, I'm going to see if you have any questions only of our panel, and then we'll go to the public, and then we'll go to comments and statements, okay? So I have people up on the board. I'm going to ask if yours is a question. If not, Supervisor Anderson, you're up first. Do you have a question only?
Sorry?
You have a question only of this panel before we go to board?
Well, I think that's what you requested, right?
Yes, I did.
Then that's what I'm going to do.
Very good.
The question I have is over the conversion of HOV to express lanes. So, and I want to make sure I understand it. So I may be asking a silly question that other people know, but I'm not quite sure about, and I want to be correct. The express lanes would be for like buses and things like that, but would the public be able to purchase their way onto the express? Would that exclude HOV cars from using the express lane?
Well, we'll have a lot of conversations about who you want to access those lanes, but we're assuming they'll operate like the I-15, which are currently free for HOVs, carpool, vanpool, transit, and single occupant vehicles can enter for a fee, and that fee is adjustable based on congestion levels.
Thank you very much for that. I was most concerned that people who are working hard to carpool on their own wouldn't be punished. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
I think also just to add, Supervisor, the equity study that's being done is also going to look at other areas that could be looked as, like customer breaks, discounts, different things. Those are different strategies. We're not saying it's happening. You, the board, decide all that, but we're working on all that menu. Other states are doing it also. Military discounts, low income discounts. So all that has to be looked at. So that's why this big journey of a conversation. But at the end, I think the important thing is this board is the one who decides that. This board decides if HOVs of the 2 or more people can go free, or HOVs of 3 and more people go through. Those are different things to be considered. We will bring you the objective information, and the board decides what are the rules that will govern.
I would have given my opinion, but I was told I could only ask a question.
That is accurate. Okay, Ms. Maxon?
Same, mine is a comment after.
Very good.
public.
We will keep you up on the board. Councilmember Chavez, question.
I do have a couple questions, and one was already asked by the supervisor, so I'm gonna jump that one, but
Can you move closer to your microphone, please, Carolina?
I'm normally really loud. So I have a couple questions. First, would the proposed express lanes utilize dynamic pricing for single occupancy vehicles?
Again, that's a decision that the board needs to make, but we're assuming that it would be variable pricing.
And how will occupancy verification be enforced? Again,
Again, these are all topics that are going to be coming to you. We'll provide you with objective information, as Mario said. We'll share how other folks are doing it, lessons learned, and you all will help make that decision.
And I guess my other question is answered the same way. Will clean air vehicles or other exempt vehicles classes receive discounts or free access? But I guess, again, that's something that the board will determine.
Yeah, the state law changed on that though last year, so clean air vehicles no longer get to use the lanes for free.
Perfect. Okay, and then I'll wait for my comments.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Gasterland.
Thank you. Mine is a question.
Very good.
I really appreciated the discussion from Mr. Avila on the minutes saved in the managed lanes versus the not managed lanes, because ultimately that's how we measure what is the benefit. It's minutes saved. So I'm wondering, could you briefly describe the more complicated formula that's probably behind that, where there's the managed lanes minutes, the non-managed lanes minutes, but the baseline is really, if there were no managed lanes, what would the non-managed lanes minutes be? So how do you calculate that? And how do you count cars and figure out what the total savings in minutes is?
Thank you, Director. And as I mentioned, I am the general manager of the express lanes. I am not the data analyst that did the calculations. However, I do know a little bit about how the calculations were made. We did look at different resources with respect to counting the vehicles and the data. For example, in the 2017 time period, we did utilize Caltrans's PEM system for vehicle count. So those count the number of vehicles based upon the loops on the road. In addition to that, there's a firm we used called NREX. That was all done prior to 2017. And then in 2024, we did have individuals out there counting the number of vehicles going out there in addition to this NREX. So NREX system. So having those basis, we were able to count the number of vehicles and then look at the time periods to make those counts for those vehicles as those vehicles went through the facility. The actual formulas and the time calculations, there's specific details to that I'm not familiar with, but at the high level, that's how it was done.
Yeah, so that'll be important to us as we make our decisions. Second question is a tiny one, and I think this is for Antoinette. And this is regarding the national. New York and New Jersey, do they not have dynamic pricing? They were on that slide. Oh, and this was Alan, Mr. Koser.
Just to be clear, sometimes there's different terms for different models, right? So like New York City is using cordon pricing, it's dynamic. It isn't a managed lane system, so that's probably why it's not on the list. Sort of different tools in the toolbox.
Thank you.
And to Supervisor Aguirre, or question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our panelists for making the drive down here and for your presentation. My question was already asked by Supervisor Anderson, but I just want to put it on the record that I'm interested in equity-based, efficient travel. So I think that's very important. You already addressed the equity study. I think that's going to be very important. But my question has to do with, we heard about efficient times. We heard about how to run it as a business model, but I didn't quite hear the specific pros and cons of either having a private-public partnership, public-public, or private-private. Not, I guess that wouldn't apply to us, but you see what I'm saying? So I would like to see a breakdown of what the benefits are and what potentially could be the challenges in addition to equity-based pricing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shun.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. I think this is, I didn't bring my glasses. It's Kirk. Yeah, okay, so OCTFA, at least actually this probably goes through all of you guys. Are there economists doing like analysis about the economic impact of having managed lanes? Like, do we end up seeing GDP growth in the region and what have you by now having this type of model?
Director Chin, yes, so we do employ economists similar to probably SANDAG to look at specific projects and the economic benefits of projects and how much benefit there is to a particular project. After the fact and the time savings, we have not incorporated that yet in our economic models with these individuals. But when we do like an improvement project, they'll say, 100,000 jobs were added to the county because of the fact that the construction jobs were part of this project. But to answer your specific question, not since we've opened the facility have we done that analysis.
I think beyond like just jobs, it's a speed of efficiency, right? So if I'm a logistics company or if I'm a person who's a consultant who has to go from point A to B consistently, that all of a sudden my business expands because of that. And so I was wondering if any metrics like that ever takes place. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, we have not completed that yet.
Okay. It's planned on though.
That's something we will take a look at. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think to add, Kirk, and just because I was a little bit in Orange County involved, as OCTA was moving together with the district in presenting business cases, very similar to our projects here, they did present benefits to the environment. They did present time savings that then equate to savings, similar to what we do with our, let's say, our border wait time study and economic impacts. So they did some of that. Now, have they done all this as an aggregate, like Kirk says? Not since they opened up, right? But there was multiple economic and environmental analysis to prove the benefits of the project.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a great sense of justification for us to also, it's a good tool. As the last question I have is just in regards to the excessive revenue that you weren't expecting. What have you guys done as a board to consider with that use of revenue?
Yeah, Director, the 91 is a great example because as I mentioned, the 405 is still tied up. But over the last 20 years, we've used those funds for various sources. In the very beginning, when we acquired the facility, we borrowed some internal funds at OCTA. Excess funds were then used to repay back that plus interest. But specifically in the corridor, prior to RCTC coming on board, we did spend money in Orange County. We did spend money in Riverside County. We've used it to add general purpose lanes. We've used it to do some restriping. We've done, so these excess funds are not solely invested in the express lanes, but they're invested in the corridor, in the general purpose lanes. So individuals that are not paying for tolls get the benefit from the express lanes because they get an added general purpose lane or they get a restriped lane or an auxiliary lane added. So that's what's been invested. The majority of the future funds, our board has dedicated to one of the projects along the corridor. If you're familiar from Orange County, the express lanes run from the 55 to the county line. But if you're heading towards LA County between the 57 and the 55, there's an ongoing project right now. It's over $500 million, and all future excess toll revenues are dedicated to that particular project for the improvements, the bridges, the interchanges that are the tasks for that.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mayor Ehlers.
Yeah, I have two questions. First one is about price setting of the tolls, and I think this goes to Jennifer. On slide 24, I don't know if we can bring that up. We were looking at 91, and it looked like the average cost per transaction or price was roughly 102 million divided by 21, or roughly $5. And then on slide 27 on I-15, it looked like it was more the same kind of math. It was about $1.50 to $2. And obviously price setting affects who takes it, who doesn't take it. Tell us about the dynamics, why the difference there, and how do you set prices?
So the price, both facilities are dynamically priced. So we have an algorithm that's pricing them. They start with a floor, a minimum toll. That minimum toll is based on a time savings per mile minimum amount. So it's real small. It's like less than 40 cents a mile. Our minimum toll on the 91 is about $2.30. The 15 has 4 segments. So some of those toll segments are 50 cents, 45 cents. And then it goes up as congestion happens. So we have these really long during our peak periods. As you saw in the photo that I had up for the westbound, we have quite a bit of congestion on the 91 westbound in the morning for about 4 a.m. till about 9:30 a.m. There's so much demand that we have a backup for people to get into the express lanes. And with dynamic pricing, we have the carpool HOV3 traveling for free. That accounts for about 25% of the people using it. So they're not influenced by price until November 1 for us, January 1, because we gave an extension on it for the clean air vehicle folks. That was another 6%. So we had 31% not paying a toll. So we're trying to influence 69%. We have some other discounts for disabled vets and disabled plate owners. You start to work down to who's being influenced by the price. And when you're in a fully congested peak period, we'll tell you the pricing isn't terribly effective. It'll keep some people out, but at some point you can just keep increasing it until, where are they going? That's the daily, battle for us. And of course you could make these tolls $50 and make it a ton of money, but at some point it's just not justice. Right. So we're holding the tolls for the max peak period because there's not another option for these drivers, and that's, as a regional transportation agency, we're concerned about that. So I will say, when you're looking at your discounts and your economic justice, all the discounts you give kind of impact your ability to effectively manage during peak period. So you could think about that. Maybe there's an off-peak period discount that's offered versus the peak period. So congestion pricing can remain effective. On the 15 express lanes, so westbound, on the eastbound, we travel well because we added an additional lane at the exit. We did have a backup and we had some pretty high tolls eastbound upon opening. Took us a couple of years to make some further improvements and add another express lane for the exit because we exit to 3 locations. So they were backing up. With that improvement, dynamic pricing immediately dropped the toll by 75%. So that's the beauty of dynamic pricing. It adjusts when it needs to in the shoulder. So we felt really good about that. We currently have a similar issue to that issue on the 15 southbound terminus where it drops into a narrowed GP lane. So we're trying to widen that with a future express lane extension. It's hard with the state mandate of no additional lanes on the road. So we've done some things like turn an auxiliary lane with the extra money, turn an auxiliary lane into a GP lane, and everything we can do with that. But again, the dynamic pricing does its job to a point, but then you end up capping it if you're in a really congested scenario where there's not an option.
So my takeaway is there's quite a bit of nuance to the pricing model, so thank you. I actually got way more answer than I thought, but I appreciate the complexity and that our goals will have to reflect that. My second question is actually for Kirk. And it would be slide 39 and 40. And I love it. You know, one of the things I was thinking as you were speaking is, hey, I want performance data. You know, I want to see what, in this case, on this one, 39 and 40, we showed the drop with and without the, or I should say, for people on the managed lane versus not on the managed lane. This is really valid to show the improvement. Were there other changes, though? Were there lanes added as a total? And in order to really understand the impact, can you explain any other changes that might have sped up traffic overall?
Yeah. Yes, Director. Yeah, when you look at this data, as I mentioned earlier, as part of the 405 improvement project, we added an extra HOV lane with the existing HOV lane. So that is adding one lane on this slide that's on the HOV lanes. And with respect to the general purpose lanes, we did add one general purpose lane in each direction. So you added additional capacity. But I do want to highlight that during that time period, that change from 2017 to 2024, there was approximately 20% more additional traffic brought into that corridor because of the improvements. And where did that traffic come from? It came from the competing facilities. So if you look at the I-5 and some of the data in that time period, you saw a reduction in the number of vehicles traveling that corridor, and the SR22. So those are parallel paths in Orange County that compete in essence with the 405 corridor. So you had more traffic come into the corridor, but you did add capacity. So that, and then looking at these numbers, you can see that there were savings on both the HOV express lane side and on the general purpose side.
Okay, so you'll be able to help us as we get into setting policy on how much a travel managed lane only will help us. I will be looking for data for that to help me or us set the policies. And with that, thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you so much. I also have some questions. Just kind of curious about the different structures, JPA versus the MPO versus private. And I think kind of Supervisor Aguirre talked about, you know, pros, cons, benefits, disadvantages. I'm curious to see that as well for these different types. And also, is there any type of citizens oversight that would be kind of, you know, part of the structure as well?
I don't know the answer to that. We can see if that exists in other locations when we bring back the information on the different operational models.
Yeah, I would like to see that. You know, I think it's always important when there's this type of financial component with, you know, potential penalties and whatnot, and just to be able to have a lot more transparency with the public at the very beginning, I think is always a very good governance. So I would like to see, you know, that information come forward and how we would even be able to bring that to fruition, what the process would be. I'm also curious when we're looking at, you know, low income discounts, is that a certain policy that SANDAG already has in place, or that there are other examples? Or is that a policy that also would need to have a whole additional process to bring to fruition?
Yes, we don't have that in place right now. Caltrans is doing an equity analysis, and they're looking at different types of toll credits and programs. So we'll be bringing that information to you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, is it as simple as just, you know, the board adopting that recommendation, or is there a whole process that we have to go through to build a low income discount? And would that low income discount, if it does need to go through a process, would that just be for, you know, the managed lanes, or could that also be connected to potentially, you know, MTS or NCTD for other programs where, you know, folks that are making under $15,000 and there's all this discussion about a lot of different things and potentially, there's fair studies. So, I'm looking for something that we would be able to capture, different aspects of transportation if we were going to go through a whole process of it. And I know that's a really long question, but just kind of curious to see.
There's a lot in there. So let me also talk about how we address the equity question has nuances and different solutions, right? Credits are certainly one solution, but new services targeted for particular types of users is another type of solution, right? So we're bringing back menu of, how do we ensure that all the users are being, can benefit from the facility. We're also looking at barriers to the existing facility. Why it isn't, price point is clearly part of it, but there are other barrier potentials, how people get transponders and the ability to bank and all that sort of thing. So this equity analysis will bring back all of those potential pitfalls and then potential solutions. One of the other things that, we think about in the equity analysis is we tend to focus on commuter trips, right? Morning and jobs. And there's clearly an important part of these corridors. But depending on the corridor, there's a lot of other uses that people are need to think about, right? It needs to be more of a holistic solution. When we do these surveys, we find out that people, picking up family, picking up children from daycare, going to health, going to education, that happens throughout the day. And so sometimes the solutions are going to be different. Interstate 5, huge weekend. We talk about the pricing model. Interstate 5 on the weekend, we carry more people than we do Monday through Friday for jobs, believe it or not. And so how we might address equity concerns on the weekend might be different than how we address them during the morning and PM peak. So there are a lot of nuances there. One of the things I want to tout is that as part of the equity analysis is a transportation survey that we're doing over the next month, really to find out how people would use the managed lanes, the express lanes, what might be barriers to using the express lanes, and then how they would like to prioritize their thoughts on prioritizing the revenue, the net revenue that comes back. Do they want new services? Do they want income credits? And it's just another input that we can bring to the table.
Okay.
I mentioned with the I-15 express lanes that we cover the cost of transit in the corridor with the revenues that are generated. So that's one way in which we deal with equity by providing that new service. I mentioned the van pool program, but what I didn't say is that's a subsidized program. So we provide funding, a monthly subsidy to van pools to offset the cost of van pooling. So another way that we address equity in the I-15 corridor that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that there's a lot of opportunity, especially if we're looking at, the growing the regional rapid system. And, part of that conversation, I would hope that we can talk about, some of these last first mile challenges that folks have so that they can get onto the rapid so that they could have, and the whole thing about having predictability and travel times and that being the overall incentive tied to the fee that you're charging. But that predictability is really important for the rapid system as well, because then people can plan. It's really difficult if you're the times are all over the place because you don't necessarily know if you're going to get to work late, super early, or, right on time. So, but I am just curious because I didn't necessarily hear an answer to the part of, for low income discounts, that is a whole separate process that we would have to do, right? Okay, I'm seeing yes on that. And and this is something that can come in the future to the board, but I would be really curious just to see the outline structure of what that conversation looks like, because I know that it is probably a pretty dynamic process itself.
Yeah, we'd be setting up a whole new program that would have to be administered. So it would be,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a
I mean, it's
that we need to have. Yep.
It's a daunting task, but I think that, it's good for us to understand. And, I love where this conversation is going. I think there's a lot of ability to put equity into it. Also, just want to shout out for the 76 could utilize, some managed lane system maybe in the future. And I know that, in North County with NCTD, sometimes our buses get stuck on the 76 corridor. But, the last thing that I have is,
And this is a question, right?
this is a question, yeah. I'm just curious on the more traffic on that corridor. Is that induced demand or is that different than induced demand?
Director, I believe that is induced demand.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify if that was, because I'm not seeing a whole lot of GHG emissions going down, but okay, thank you.
Thank you. First Vice Chair LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and yeah, thank you for coming down in person. It really makes a difference. My colleagues asked a lot of good questions, so I think I'm just down to two. One is what defines carpool? I think for both agencies, you're at 3+ in the initial work or your constant review of what you're doing now. Did you ever look at the difference between defining carpooling as 2+ versus 3+?
Yes, Director, you are correct, for HOV3s are on the 91 express lanes, but for the 405, our policy today is that HOV3s get to go for free at all times of the day, and HOV2s get to go for free during non-peak hours, but they pay a regular toll during peak hours. The analysis for us really came down to what could we afford, and the TIFIA financing for us was key in that. If we did not have a TIFIA financing, we would not have been able to allow HOV2s to travel for free. That's only for a set period of time. It's only for 3.5 years since we opened that we allow that. Then after that, it only goes to HOV3. But really, it was a financing decision for us to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, I think, Kirk, you mentioned about back office and the pain in doing that. We are somewhat familiar with that. And you now share back office? Did I understand that correctly?
So for the 91 express lanes, as Jennifer mentioned, we are a partnership. So we have one contractor that handles it for the 91 express lanes for both Riverside County and OCTA. OCTA on the 405 has a separate back office provider.
Okay. Are either one of those portable? Could someone buy them, for example?
You could contract with that contractor, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as we face some of our challenges here, trying to figure out back office is certainly one of them. But okay, again, thank you very much for taking the time. This is very helpful.
Thank you. Mayor Snow.
Again, thank you so much for coming down here. I am a consumer of the Orange County's lanes. And so back in the day, I used to get a transponder that I could attach to my window, but it also had an on and off switch. I roll in a minivan with lots of kids, but sometimes I don't. So sometimes I would use the turn it on, so I would be charged a fee, and then I would turn it off when I got all the kids in the car. So now I don't get a transponder anymore. So how do you track when someone has high occupancy versus when they don't and you're charging them?
First off, thank you for using the express lanes in Orange County. So what you're talking about is what we used to call the switchable transponders, where you can move it from one person, two persons, three persons. Several years ago, about 5 years ago, we switched over to 6C technology, where there's sticker transponders and you place those on your windshields. However, there is a different version of the 6C technology that is a switchable component. That transponder you can adjust for the number of individuals in your vehicle. And the way we do it in Orange County is, as you go through a toll plaza, that toll plaza will light up with respect to the number of individuals you have indicated on your transponder. So there's certain colors that designate the number of individuals, and we do have CHP roaming the express lane. So if they see
let's say a red color, and that signifies that you have one person in the car, or vice versa. If they have you see a green, and that designates that you have three people in the car, and they only see one person in there, then they're going to pull you over. But it is based upon what they can see and how many people they can pull over. It's not a very effective system, but there is a threat of that being pulled over and being cited for it.
Okay.
And if I could just chime in real quick too. I mean, we do see this as an opportunity to modernize our existing system in San Diego, right? When we talk about the I-15 model, we have not really thought about new technology since we opened it 20 years ago, right? And so the world has changed a lot. In tolling and in pricing, industry is changing very quickly over the last year or two. And so I think we're going to look at various solutions. So transponder's clearly on the table, but there's some more modern solutions that other states are using video occupancy detection. Don't know if it's good or bad, but we'll report back over the next year plus 18 months to kind of ferret the best solution out for us. But it is an opportunity.
I agree. I'm excited for that. I was like, so the other part of my question is how do you communicate to the communities that are using these services, how these things are regulated? Because I have been using Orange counties for probably many years now and have never really understood how it worked. I will tell you for no apparent reason that I thought you had infrared technology that could see how many, like more bodies in the car. So I don't know why I thought that, but I had no idea even that I had the capability to turn it off. So which may explain why you're getting so much money, because people don't know how to turn it off when they're using the high occupancy.
So with respect to communications, most of the communications occurred with customers going onto our website to find out the information. Unfortunately, several years ago, with privacy lawsuits that were out there, that changed in how we communicate with customers. We used to have newsletters and things like that, but some issues have come up with that, and we've kind of retracted using that. So if you're a customer for OCTA, whether it's a 40591, you can opt in to receive emails to get information. That plus the websites are the way we provide communication.
Before we open a new road, we do extensive customer education. We built customer videos, how to. We had quite a few views on those. We go out into the community, do your best. If we change a policy, we directly contact customers and let them know, because that's provided for under law. On the RCTC 91 express lanes, we are using video occupancy for enforcement of our carpool discount. That went in August of this year, and we're having quite a bit of success. It's not quite there to be used as the only means for determining occupancy, but there's technology out there to help with enforcement. It's making a big difference.
Okay. And thank you for going to that. That was my third question. I'm a consumer protection attorney. And how are you controlling the privacy of your consumers with these? Do you sell the data? And I know that there have been problems with like spoof emails, and so how are you handling those situations?
Yeah, I think so. These toll system operators have been operating under, they process credit cards. So they've been operating under the payment credit card industry standards, which is highly secure. Streets and Highway Code 31490 dictates what we can do with the transaction data and toll data. So we all have privacy policies that clearly state what we can and cannot do. We don't sell our data. We can't even send emails to them about a fire. We're very careful on what we can do. The consumer privacy people have been really strict with the use of toll data. The California Toll Operators Committee, which is a committee where every toll agency participates, works on this stuff exhaustingly, and we compare notes with attorneys, and it takes a lot of our time and energy to be compliant and make sure we stay compliant, but that's a high requirement for us to operate in this industry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fisher.
Thanks, Chair. Real quick, you mentioned that the back office systems are contracted. Are they paid a fee, or is it a percentage of revenue?
They are paid for the work they do. They're not incentivized to collect, if that's the question. So yes, they have, there are different structures. Our contractor has a base fee and then it has a variable fee. So if transactions change, it reduces risk for the contractor and allows us good pricing on the base fee.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because Mr. Vela mentioned that they run it like a business, and that's obviously very important when you're operating something that, you're compensated for the work you do and if you do above and beyond. Second question I have, when you talk about rate setting, you mentioned it was done by your board, but does that have to be approved by the state of California?
No, on the 91, it has to go to the 91 Advisory Committee. That's a requirement by legislature and our respective boards, but not to the state.
Okay, good. I'd like to keep Sacramento out of our business as well.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to public comment, but first I just want to, for those of you who are going to make comment, please push your button now and think about what it is. You can tell by the questions here, these are great questions, that there's a lot of nuance to this and decisions that we're all going to have to be making. So what kind of information do you all need in order to make the choices that we're going to have to be making for the business rules? We've got the goals up here, or we will have the goals up here again pretty soon. So if you have comments on those goals, but also what kind of information are you going to need to make those choices and decisions in the months to come? Okay, Michael, public comment, please.
Yes, Chair. We have 3 in person and 4 online. First in person is Cesar Javier, followed by allegedly Audra. The topic being discussed is managed lanes.
Cesar and Purita, we could only present by bullets. Working together to ensure justice, domestic tranquility, public welfare. Number 2, incrementalization to mega politicization, meaning progress. There are 2 schools of thoughts on this subject. Conceptually, Sir Ma'am, thank you for your presentation. It's surgical operation as far as quality transit, fast and safe for the public. SANDAG connects community. That's true. You have lectured us and we learn about it. When will SANDAG connect, historically, communities? Example, the East and West Railway. Could this be a concept for the region, especially that we are geographically, umbilically, contiguously with Mexico, and even our sovereign tribes? I think we have to think outside of the box. Is surgical operation more economic in long term? Or would it be best to get out of that conventional thinking? Let's go build ways and highways. Water, inland, underground. Let's think. Population, day and night, density has high correlation to quality transit, time, and safety. Councilor Lacaba, Councilor Lee, city employees who are here.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Jeff Huter. The item being discussed is managed lanes.
You guys are something else. It's funny. You're like, we're going to save you time, minutes traveled. Like that's what you really want to do, you guys. And you're not going to reduce greenhouse gases because you're going to take lanes. You're not adding any. You're going to take a lane away and then implement this. And they're probably all going to go to toll roads at some point. Because you guys, I don't understand how this fits into, we have to get everybody out of their cars plan. Because I mean, by, 2030 is coming up and you guys want to get everybody out of driving. yet you're going to implement something like this because you want to control people's movements. And that's what's so sad is that people think like, yeah, they're going to save me time. It's so great, especially when, Terry, you want to charge per minute traveled. So it's interesting. You're actually going to take money out of your pocket. But with this video occupancy enforcement, I'm wondering how would you determine, say, if there was an infant in the car or, you know, a child that maybe you can't see through the window? Do you have some kind of technology that would be able to see heat or something like that? Because I mean, it's just interesting. And then the fact that you guys are probably going to be upset that that could potentially be sharing data of illegal immigrants. So there's probably going to be something in there that's going to be a problem because the data doesn't get shared through you guys. It gets shared through your contractors and the people providing the service. So you can sit there and say all day long that you do not do that, but it's interesting too because vehicle miles travel tax is coming down the pike. So, and you guys were talking about a road usage charge. Evidently that's gone for now. But I mean, how are you thinking that when people are in dire straits because of choices that you guys have made throughout the years, that charging them now to drive is going to be beneficial? And what hoops would you have to jump through in order to get some kind of, you know, discount, you know, and, you know, who exactly would that be for? Is the question. And it's just sad because you guys paint a picture of things and you act like you're doing it to benefit us, but this is the United Nations Agenda 21 being implemented.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Jeff Cuter, followed by Paul the Bold online.
Yeah, thank you, board members. I'd just like to follow up on a comment that I submitted to the web portal last night. First of all, you know, great presentation day on managed lanes. I think the thing that's underlining all this is that this is a strategy for flexibly using the infrastructure we have. And that includes optimizing processes, not just for public transit, but for personal automobiles. But here's the issue that we have. As soon as you combine automobile transportation with public transportation, it no longer meets the definition of bus rapid transit that was shown on slide 7 of today's presentation. And that's particularly important to us in San Diego because bus rapid transit, which isn't really bus rapid transit, and clearly with these managed lanes is never going to meet the dedicated bus lane requirement of bus rapid transit, is used by the city of San Diego in its sustainable development areas map. And all of these stops need to be removed from those maps. This is being exacerbated by SB 79 because the same not bus rapid transit stops, the not dedicated lanes, and pulling over on the freeway to pick people up and then getting back into a HOV lane doesn't make it bus rapid transit. All of those stops need to be removed from whatever transit planning SANDAG is doing in order to implement SB 79. This extends not just from the shared bus lanes on freeways, but we have a shared bus bike lane on El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego. Again, it may feel good for the environment, but bikes are personal transportation. That is not a busway dedicated to public transportation, and those stops need to be removed. And this needs to be done throughout the plan and SB 79. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by Consuelo.
Paul Bold. It's interesting that there are 6 types of managed lanes, most without tolls. If you did it before, let's keep it that way. No inter-county tolls either. Nice to have a history of county roads, even if the maps omit a lot of East County. That's why it needs a vote, or maybe 13 or more regions instead to be on the board rather than cities. I've been on both OCTA and RCTC managed lane highways. Those seem to run smoother but couldn't handle all the traffic SANDAG does. I heard the freeway's fast, but the wait to get on it is long. Many use many new HOV lanes seem to be squeezed in, making 3 lanes where there used to be 4 lanes out of 3, and so on. This makes the lanes narrower and more dangerous. Slide 8 seems to indicate that people who use SR 125, mostly from the lower income areas of Chula Vista, South San Diego, Lemon Grove, and Spring Valley, are the ones who paid to support the other roads in this county. Time for all of the county to support their roads, not just a few areas, many of whom can't afford it. It's also ridiculous that there are no managed lanes on the I-8 or Highway 52, which are among the most congested in the county. Highway 94 is really bad. Slide 10, the lack of planned express lanes in this county is disgusting. If people won't give up their cars, SANDAG needs to adapt to us, not us to SANDAG. It's not a one-way street. And I definitely look forward to faster and more reliable travel in a user-friendly
Thank you. Your time has
way.
expired. Next is Consuelo, followed by Truth.
Okay, first off, I want to say how, Mayor Snow would be the one to say something about tracking people with infrared technology. I wonder the people of Lemon Grove want to recall her. Okay, and I do appreciate what the councilwoman had to say, the one who brought up the citizen oversight. I forgot her name. The one who pronounced Paloma's last name, Aguirre. And let's see, what else here? Managed lanes did not need an entire presentation. In short, it's all about the globalist agenda. It's really about how you will be managing the behavior of the people. Mario mentioned federal requirements, like keeping up with those requirements for money, revenues from tolls, and it's good to hear you'll still be using Transnet only because the record of their failures, like the SR 125. To sum it up, as I mentioned before, this is all about control, managed behavior, and accommodating the global agenda, laying down the blueprint for the United Nations agenda for the 21st century. As I've stated in the past speeches, this includes the surveillance of people, tracking them, living in a fishbowl, colluding, conspiring against what's best for humanity. And this is no longer a conspiracy theory.
Please stay on topic.
I am, brother. I am on topic. Would you please stay to the Brown Act and comply with those rules? Thank you. Okay, so this is no longer a conspiracy theory, as some like to minimize it too. This is a conspiracy truth, and it's evident. Honestly, you guys are all contributing to the imprisonment of our fellow man, and it sucks. What else do I have to say here? Yeah, just the fact that,
Thank you.
listening
Your
to the
time has
woman.
expired. Next is Truth, followed by Blair Beekman.
Why does SANDAG fail to meet federal requirements for highways? Why is this the first time we've seen any managed lane maps? Why did bills like SB 1316 give private corporations the imagined right to go into debt to toll people's travel for 50 years? Why, despite new managed lanes, traffic congestion is an all-time high to match the densification of neighborhoods? Let's be real, this is all political theater, because even if managed lanes are not toll lanes today, they will be toll lanes tomorrow. Look at the road tax. Progressives changed the name. Different tools for the toolbox. And when that didn't work, they pretended they were suddenly against it to save their campaigns. All while they knew their state allies were going to push it through anyways. Nothing stops the state from turning all managed lanes into toll lanes. SANDAG will build more replicas of the 125 toll fiasco all around San Diego County, specifically discriminating against backcountry residents who must drive the furthest simply because they live where they can afford. AKA, SANDAG targets the lowest income, including those who must live even further in Riverside County. Nobody's saying supports taking away lanes and higher driving costs than the state already causes. This is mobility discrimination from an agency that claims to care about our most vulnerable, most disadvantaged people of color, and all the other bleeding heart propaganda lies we've heard since 2020, and Manuela is going to repeat later. This is about taxing and tracking. Just like I said earlier, the hypocritical ICE derangement sufferers have no problem tracking American citizens' movement. Managing access is a form of modern transportation segregation, akin to being condemned to the back of a stupid bus. SANDAG's travel choices consist of double taxing people for roads we already pay for, where the rich get to go where they want and the poor get to drive out of California because they're sick and tired of artificial congestion, taxes, corruption, and intentional ineptitude. What happened to equal access and opportunity? Everyone should see the exact same traffic relief, not a select few. Our disabled veterans did not fight for this. That's why people are carpool fleeing to the 40 free states without these extra taxes.
Our last public comment is Blair Beekman. The item being discussed is managed lanes.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thank you for this item. Sorry, my previous public comment, I got a little strong at the end. I just wanted to make sure to enunciate the point of responsibility in the future of smart growth planning. And that means good accountable tech practices. To apply those accountable tech practices to this item, it sounds like there is going to be a lot of tech involved in the future of this. I can't stress enough that if you practice accountable policies and clear policies that have a conversation with the public and that are well vetted and just open and accountable and create good standards, I swear to God that your project will go a lot easier. Something will be very much more clear because you're practicing our best intentions as human beings. And it's with that, there just comes responsibility. You just, when you start building and thinking in those good terms, you naturally better question what is the future of more responsible practices for this sort of item. I didn't hear listed anything about planning for the future of high-speed rail. Does that need to be considered in however you're talking about this issue? And where does that fit into this process, if at all? It should get some sort of mention at some point, I think, if it hasn't already. I just thought I would note that at this time. What else? Yeah, the work through Riverside and Orange County is really important. Thank you for everyone's efforts on this item today. It was nice that you've had this item. Good luck that if there's ever UN questions on UN's role in this process, good luck that we can have an open, clear debate as local community to find UN ideas and make them, really good and more than just abstract. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, we're on to member comments. We'll start with Ms. Maxon.
Thank you. And thank you for this presentation. Commuting is a sore topic. I often wonder why we don't have an Orange County and Riverside County seat here, because we do have an Imperial County, and since this is regional and you're neighbors, it would be nice to see Orange County and Riverside here regularly, in my opinion. In my former life, I managed a department of folks in the Kearney Mesa area, and the commute experience for our hourly workers versus our salary workers was night and day. Our hourly workers, most of them came up from Chula Vista and National City, and they had extremely long commutes, not because of the distance, but because of the traffic accidents. There was always some incident on those roadways, and their commute would be not only longer, but they would be late to work. And that was not their fault. But yet it impacted their work history and their ability to earn those missing minutes or sometimes hours. For the salary workers, many of them at the time, and I'm going to date this, they were getting Priuses and had the perk of being able to go into the carpool lane for free. So not only their experience of driving to work, and they were salary, so if they were late, it was not an issue to their work history or their work record. It made for an unequal playing field. If we're really concerned with equity and knowing that lower income households tend to have older cars, job site-based work, and homes in less expensive areas, also known as an unincorporated area, and resulting in a longer commute, wouldn't we design express lane use based on this criteria? Instead of benefiting those who have an income that can afford this travel convenience or perk, why not allow express lane use based on a combination of factors that unfortunately continue to keep our lower income families exposed or overexposed to highway travel and other unfortunate roadway incidences that result in lateness to work? I keep going back to lateness to work because it was a constant theme. As a manager, the playing field was not level for my staff. At SANDAG, as managed lanes are developed, we have an opportunity to recognize this inequity and to correct it. Let's switch express lane access from a perk to for a few people to an equity hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you so much, Chair. There we go. I just have a couple of things that I wanted to add that would be important to me when we come up with our policy. One would be that all of the lane access fees would be only used on maintenance or operations of the lanes specifically. That there would be no conversion of lanes that are currently general purpose lanes built as general purpose lanes. And then when we think about management, I think we should do what we do in San Marcos, and that would be a best value analysis to see if it's cheaper and better quality service to outsource it or have it in-house, because I don't want to bring up a poor subject, but we all know what happened with the last issue. And then, yes, we all do. And then also that we'd have no further charges that are not for, to actually access those lanes. It would be a road user charge or a driving tax or anything like that. I'm sure that's beating a dead horse, but I just wanted to mention those as some of my top priorities in a new policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez.
We all know what happened with the 125 back office and tolling issue. So some of the questions were already asked and answered, and I every time we mentioned in the South Bay anything that's regarding toll, managed lanes, anything charging, gives us a little bit of PTSD. So I have to mention it that if we're moving forward with this, we're not going to get in the way of progress, of carbon emissions, of cutting down anything and everything that we can do to help the environment and the traffic. But I will say this, is there a trial period? Did I miss that? Do we have a trial period where we are going to see numbers on how we're affecting traffic, favoring traffic users?
So you're asking if it'll be a pilot first initially?
Is there going to be a pilot, or is there going to be numbers that are getting back to us?
Well, the intent would be to constantly be monitoring and reporting back to the board on performance, and, we'd be able to adjust the operational policies and how the facility is managed based on performance.
Go ahead.
I think we need to kind of step back and look at the big picture. You will see, as I began the presentation, this is going to be a journey, but it's connecting all the dots. We will be coming to this board, as we have discussed before, to talk about how we're going to improve our toll operations, our back office. That's going to be coming up. We will be coming, as today, the beginning of the conversation, of what are those things that concern you, so the team can pick up and kind of prepare the plan. A pilot for an express lane, I think we may have pilots to see how we do enforcement in checking, because a challenge that we're going to have with our express lanes, especially the 5 and 805, is that we're not a 405 with 2 lanes and a big shoulder. This is a 1 HOV conversion, and in some cases with no shoulder. So we can't have a CHP officer not park anywhere to enforce. So a pilot on how are we going to enforce, and are we going to look at what Riverside is doing and others and Colorado? Yeah, for sure. I think there's going to be, we need to be thinking how we're going to approach this huge conversation in step progressions. How are we going to take the equity analysis, and it's going to be the strategies in different regions are going to be different projects. They're going to be clear, like the 78 may have BMT mitigation, may require some of those tolls to go to transit to subsidize as the BMT mitigation. So it's a big conversation, complex, but I think setting the structure as an agency, understanding that this board will call the shots, will set the tolls, will set the policies, is good. For us as staff, hearing you and hearing what your concerns helps us formulate the business proposals and the alternatives. Understanding that there are many types of partnerships. A P3 partnership may not be just giving away a facility to be 100% managed and the toll set by a private vendor. It may be, can you install the equipment and then you get a per transaction fee? Therefore, we don't pay upfront for all the equipment. There are many, many possibilities. So we will be bringing all those ideas. But I do want to put it out there that this is a beginning of a conversation of something that's happening. We have understood where we need to tool up. We definitely need to get our act together on a back office system in this region, for sure. And we're looking into partnerships with our neighbors. And like I said, you will hear that conversation in the very near future. We will be looking at all the ideas of how equity based on geographic and different areas fit. But also there, like the comment about NTS and North County Transit and the discounts, those agencies have their own boards. So we will need to have a more robust conversation with them. But all that takes a lot of time. So it's looking at kind of the low-hanging fruit, the sequence of events that Antoinette and Alan presented, how it's happening. And look, we have two facilities operating, the 125, that we need to come and brief you because you mandated us to come up and with a strategy of how can the finances be expedited for early payment. We will be coming with that. Then we have a new back office system. We have the I-15, the algorithms that we also need to be updating in back office. We have Alta Mesa East, which is, it's congestion pricing at the border. That's what Alta Mesa is, variable pricing at the border. And then we have the 805 and the 5. Those are the most elements that are coming in front of us. Nearer there is going to be the 78 and the 52. Those are, tier 2, let's call it like that, just from a sequential order. But we need to be setting up the structure of the business rules, how you want us to operate, how you want us to come and talk to you. What is going to be the process for toll setting, toll updating? The 125, we purchased it 12, 14 years ago. We purchased it, we lowered the toll. We never adjusted the toll. Okay, but guess what? All the operating costs has kept increasing. Well, there's going to be a point that may not equate. The same with the 15. So we need to really pick up our game as a region on setting out all the rules and the business plan and providing you all the levers so you could be in charge and help us. But we as staff will come with different proposals and ideas.
That is a good information. And I want to thank staff and all the hard work and our visitors from up north. I always have to mention community outreach is so important because when they listen to managed lane, they're like, oh my God. Like you told us on the 125, the 805 and the 5 has traffic from Otay Mesa, and then you have 100,000 people commuting from the border region to work, to study, and then additionally to South Bay having all their cities commuting for work as well. So they think managed lanes is opening not HOV, but other lanes, regular lanes in the freeway. So I think community outreach is out of great necessity that we have it front and center to inform the public of what's coming and how it's going to benefit and cut down times. I'm just going to leave it at that. I already made my questions. Everyone had questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gasterland. Thank you. You asked us to talk about, if we had ideas, what's important as we're going to be considering policy. And in my view, it's going to be important to define metrics to measure tangible benefits. I appreciate the mention of several years ago when we were looking at how to count greenhouse gas reduction. Rather than vehicle miles traveled, think about vehicle minutes traveled. It was actually in that context, not charging for minutes in cars. But the idea there is clear. You know, highway mileage is usually better. And I wonder if looking at gallons of gas sold in the region is one way to really look at the impacts of managed lanes. It's going to be important not only to separate out the impacts of managed lanes, and that's including, does it reduce general purpose lane minutes or does it increase general purpose lane minutes, but also to look at the impact of managed lanes on nearby surface streets. And surface streets, sometimes people just bypass it entirely. I spend a lot of time in actually I've spent a lot of time in airplanes flying back and forth to Washington, DC. But as a result, I'm using the Dulles Airport Toll Road and the Beltway frequently. And I think there may be many lessons that we could gain by talking with the Virginia Department of Transportation. That was a really great observation. The Dulles Toll Road, for example, has lanes in the middle that have no toll. It's kind of a misnomer. So if you get on the Dulles Toll Road, you pay no toll. But if you accidentally, which I do all the time, get onto a piece of a side highway, you pay a toll. So, and those are dynamically priced. So there are people who get on the toll road and they drive all the way to Dulles and then they come back on the surface roads. So their behaviors change. The last point there is Route 66, for example. It's not toll sometimes and it's toll other times. You're charged for getting onto the road and that's it. So you don't get charged per mile, you just get charged whether or not you use it. Those are also things for us to look at. And I echo our county supervisors, both Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Aguirre have said equity is important, and it really, really is. When SR 125 came up a couple of years ago, I pointed out that I have great empathy, even though we in Del Mar don't use SR 125 much. If I had to get onto the highway and pay a toll to get to where I need to go, it would be a burden. And it's not just me, it's everybody. So we have to give people the choice to not have to pay. And we have to give access to these managed lanes. If they're improving quality of travel, everyone should have access to that quality of travel. So those are the concepts and the metrics and the measurements that I'm going to be looking for as we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to align myself with some of the comments regarding meaningful community engagement. I think I've heard several different comments around that. I think maybe we should explore the idea of having a citizens advisory committee as we go through this process that represents equitably the unincorporated areas, the areas that may have unintended consequences, public transit riders, commuters, van pool riders, all of the above, so that we can have good, meaningful feedback in addition to the extensive quantitative number of meetings. I'm looking more so on qualitative feedback. I would also like to see us move in a direction that prioritizes managed lanes for transit reliability, prioritizing buses, carpools, and van pools, so these options are more reliable, in addition to what's already been mentioned about cost and equity around cost. I think we're also responsible for delivering on the ambitious rapid bus expansion promised in our recently approved regional transportation plan, so we need to consider that. We also need to keep equity, I've said it earlier, at the center of decision-making with strong low-income access pricing programs, reasonable consumer protections, and enforcement approaches that don't punish working families with escalating fees. We've seen how detrimental that could be once you fall into a fee and then it expands, and it can be devastating for a lot of working families. We also need transparent reinvestment pathways from revenue generated through this system beyond its use for financing rapid transit. I think that's important if we're to meet our greenhouse gas emission goals. We can explore expanding transit access. For example, perhaps some of these funds could go to fund the long-term youth opportunity pass funding or expanding the Blue Line operational hours. I know that's been mentioned previously in different conversations. We should also explore investing some revenues back into corridor communities most impacted by freeway pollution and congestion in ways that are allowable by state and federal law. We also need to learn lessons from SR 125, which has also been mentioned, and from other jurisdictions developing management systems that have a central goal of accountability through performance standards, public reporting, and data privacy. I think all of those issues have been brought up already. Ultimately, this is an opportunity for us to build a regional system that improves travel choices, reduces emissions, and delivers benefits broadly. I've already expressed my strong interest in a robust equity study that explores all of our options to ensure we don't end up in a situation where those who benefit are those who have and not the have-nots. I would also like to see this equity-based pricing as part of our general goals. I don't see it up there. That would be my proposal. I think that should be one of our goals in addition to these great proposed express lane goals that we have already have featured here. And I'll just add that, I think we need to ensure that equity, reinvestment, and public trust are constantly embedded in everything we do. And I just wanted to say that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Snow.
So I'm going to focus my comments largely on the goals at this point. I think at this point, I don't think we're ready to get into the weeds of things. But so for mine, one of the top goals is to decrease the number of cars we have on our roads. So I am highly in favor of pushing it towards high occupancy vehicles. From the discussion we just had, they were saying that only 25% of the travel on these express lanes is high occupancy vehicles. And my goal is to get that a lot higher. So whatever we can do to incentivize that. I also want to make sure that we're meeting the guidelines, the federal guidelines regarding increasing the speed of travel. People are, I've been on the 5. There's a HOV lane as you're getting up to Del Mar. And when the fare is on, nobody's moving. And so just being able to see movement in those lanes and speeding up the time would be important. Echo what's been said regarding equity. And in the process, I really want to establish a good relationship with a trustworthy authority who's going to prioritize consumer protection, communication, and providing a solid product regarding operations and maintenance. I would really push heavily in favor of either a JPA or SANDAG or another nonprofit entity. I think if we introduce a for-profit company into this, we may see problems. So those are my guiding goals on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the presentation and folks here from Riverside and Orange County. Thank you very much. In fact, the key takeaways were really important, I think, that we incorporate. I think I heard over 600 public outreach meetings. So I think we've all echoed that we need to have very robust outreach to the community. I also would like to see maybe the use of animated public education pieces, just to kind of, for me, you know, I don't like the word, but like dumb it down, like, you know, how to, it sounds like a very complicated thing, but to really just, for the user, just make it look like it's, you know, it's something that would actually be really easy. I did have a question through Oceanside. We're still working on the HOV. So it looks like it's going to be almost automatically turned into from an HOV to a managed lane. So
That is correct.
that would be good.
That's the strategy.
Yeah, I did have a chance to talk to our city manager before this presentation, and he thought it would be good too. I wondered which one was going to go first, 5 or 805. I think that might address the questions about a pilot, you know, how that goes, right? I echo the equity conversations here, especially Oceanside. We tend to have a lot of folks who live in Riverside County coming to work in Oceanside. And so I would like to see, I mean, you know, folks who are not able to afford to live on the coast, you know, to somehow take that into consideration when offering or deciding what is equitable in terms of, you know, because people do need to get to work on time. And so that's that few minutes, maybe, I don't know, there were some minutes that were like, what, 15, 20 minutes, that will matter a lot, especially in the morning. I'd like to also see how we're going to address the failure of the HOV. That was what we started off with, right? It's like, it's not working, right? Mr. Cossip said, you know, we're here because of different reasons, but one of them is because it has failed to really get us. You know, there are folks who are using the HOV who are just single. There's only one person driving and nobody else in the car, I guess is what the suggestion is, but it's not.
Yeah, but I think that it's also been, when we talk degrading, it's because it's overused, right? And like the 805, there's a moment that the level of service is not there. It has been used, and it could be because some people are abusing the usage. So I think all that has to be looked into.
Well, I definitely wanted to make sure that we address the failures. That's it. I think it's, I probably wouldn't be using it, right? But that's because I've retired from my real job, which was being a deputy public defender. So my time is more flexible. But those who are really on a timeline, it's going to be very, very critical that they understand this. There's signage. There's, just making it as easy as possible for folks, and to really get whatever input that we need from the public in all different ways. Thank you.
I just want to also make a comment of how the dots are being connected. I think it was last week, I'm not sure, at the exec committee, it was being discussed of how the working groups, the advisory groups, and actually it was approved that setting up a community advisory group, which is very in line with Supervisor Aguirre is asking us to look into. So that was discussed at the executive committee to create those type of community advisory groups. So it falls totally in line with the strategy where we're moving and really enhancing our engagements per subject. So that's really cool.
All right. First Vice Chair LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. My colleagues asked a lot of good questions or put a lot of things on the table that hopefully is hopeful to staff. A couple of things. One, to kind of just emphasize and reemphasize a point. I know we're looking at back office for 125, and I would hope that the conversation would also include whether it's portable or scalable to the managed lane system so that we can get it right the first time. The other thing, just kind of level set, going a little bit into the weeds. What we're talking about is really converting HOV lanes into express lanes. So we're not talking about what we see on the 15 or the 91 or the 405, where we actually have grade separated lanes, direct access from surface streets onto the express lanes. So I'm wondering how much, if we're beginning to think about how much of an impact this will actually be in terms of changing activity on the freeways, reducing travel times, besides, to put it bluntly, generating revenue so that we can actually afford to maintain our freeway system. I mean, have we gotten to that point, either Alan or Antoinette, or are we still in the early stages yet?
We're certainly in the early stages and continuing to do research, and we'll bring you back that information. It really is a function of what the business rules are that we decide as a region and what those objectives are, right? If we, I mean, we see it as a new, if you could get some of the violators out, right? And then you can get fee paying people back in, you're providing a new legal access to that facility, right? Which we don't have now. So that's new opportunity. If you had 3+, right, you would have more, a different type of opportunity, right? So it really is a function of what the business rules are.
Okay, fair. Go ahead, Ed. Did you want to add?
I'll just add to that. We're not going to be the only one lane facility. We've been doing research. They exist elsewhere, so we can bring back data and information on performance. We're also doing modeling and testing different scenarios to see how the one lane scenario can work. So all of that information will be coming to you.
Okay, for me, and I guess maybe it's the engineer, I just want to level set expectations that this could be an important change without a dramatic change that we see, which when you actually start doing grade differential and flyaways and all that kind of stuff that we see in other areas. So I'm not trying to suggest that it's not a good idea. I just want to level expectations in terms of what we can actually achieve through this. The other thing I completely forgot, but I appreciate the consideration, and I know Caltrans is doing a lot of outreach already. And if there is some mechanism to begin to share that with, I think, the board members and some of the issues they brought up going forward, I think will be very helpful to us going forward. Really want to hammer that back office component there. So anyway, again, thank you to our visitors from the adjoining counties and sharing your thoughts and your experiences. I'm sure we'll continue to rely on that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Ehlers.
Yeah, I I agree with many of the criteria that I've heard today. I think I actually wanted to go one step higher. And I have a fundamental, because I love Board Member LaCava's point that we're just converting one lane HOV to manage. So my first question is, does it gain an advantage, a performance advantage? And I need to know that, and I want to establish that. And I think that gets back to asking the data question. And my second question is, if it does, just a minimal amount maybe, but we're generating a lot of revenue, is it really a de facto toll road? And that's a different question for me. Do we want to turn our freeways into toll roads? And I think that's the highest level question that I'm going to start with, and then we'll get down to how do we determine discounts? How do we zero emission cars? How do we equity? And all the other questions were brought up. So I just wanted to bring that up, make sure we keep that in the forefront first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see nobody else up on the board. I want to thank our panel. Thank you so much for visiting and sharing your experiences. It's been very helpful to have you here to get really in-depth questions answered or answered in the future. So this requires no action today, but as you can tell, we got a lot of work to do in the future on setting this whole regional system up for us. So if no further discussion, we're going to move on to closed session. We'll begin with public comments on our closed session. Michael, how many do we have?
Here we have 1 in person and we have 4 online. So first is allegedly Audra, followed by Truth Online.
Okay, thank you.
The item is the closed session litigation. Go ahead.
Right, you guys wouldn't go ahead if this was going on. Can we be quiet because we want to hear people speak? You guys don't give a crap. You shouldn't even be engaging in closed session when you guys are engaged in fraud, waste, and abuse yourself, especially with this case. You guys always want to go after entities or companies, whatever it is, that are doing something fraudulent when you yourselves do it every day that you are here. You guys lie to the people. You sit here and talk about you wanting community engagement when you silence people, and you have Paloma Jezebel Aguirre, sitting there saying she wants to exclude people if they don't agree with her ideology. So how the heck would you act like, being discriminatory is a way to bring in public comment? Because if it doesn't agree with you guys, you don't want to hear it. And so how are you equipped to be able to be trusted with deciding on litigation? And how much money is this going to cost us? I mean, you guys take our money and you just do these frivolous things that really don't improve our lives. I mean, just what you were talking about. This is not about saving time or, whatever. You guys want to paint that picture so people buy into your bullshit. But the truth is, you want to control our movement, period. You say it all the time. And people just have to listen, but nobody pays attention because nobody knows who the hell you guys are, not even in your own communities. And that's what's so sad. People will know who the president is, but it's like you ask them who's representing their local community, they don't know. But yet you say you represent them. So how can you claim that when nobody knows who the heck you are? Where to even go if they wanted to go and redress you guys? It's sad because you guys waste our money and people are suffering. There's homeless people all the time just begging for help down here. And all you guys do is want to clean it up, right, LaCava?
Please stay on topic.
Oh, I am on topic because this is talking about your guys' ability to be making decisions when the world around us looks like it does.
Next is Truth, followed by Paul the Bold online.
Hey there. According to the American Bankers Association, in August 2021, the city of Philadelphia, SANDAG, the Baltimore City Council, and other investors sued banks, including Bank of America, Citigroup, and Merrill Lynch, claiming they conspired to avoid competition by agreeing to keep variable rate demand obligation interest rates artificially high to prevent investors from exercising a put option on the debt bonds and tendering them back to the banks. Let's see. Those agreements required the banks to set the lowest possible rates to keep the bonds trading at face value. And that just sounds swell on its face, but the story is deeper than that. Because other banks being sued include Barclays, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, the Royal Bank of Canada, and Wells Fargo for allegedly conspiring to fix interest rates. Notice the last bank is Wells Fargo. Remember, at the January 23rd meeting, I had questioned if there was a conflict of interest by having Wells Fargo be an underwriter to a SANDAG debt bond when they were simultaneously housing SANDAG's headquarters. There's a pattern of a lack of ethics with this agency. In 2024, variable rate was a topic former CFO Andre loved bragging about, while this board sat here in silence, somehow completely unaware of the obvious dirty sketch fumes coming off that character since the beginning. Why isn't Andre named in this lawsuit? He's the one that was signing off on all those financial decisions. I also remember former CEO Hassan investing in JP Morgan and the Royal Bank of Canada, maybe even more banks than that. With SANDAG's building moved partly due to this lawsuit against Wells Fargo. We know it can only be partly because the other corruption-motivated agenda was that HNTB is also, not coincidentally, in this new building with SANDAG. It has been a very twisted web SANDAG has weaved for decades now. This lawsuit is not the justice that is needed to bring the change that is required and very, very, very long overdue. I do trust people like Bruce to get to the bottom of issues. Encinitas is on the up. Some of you need to learn from that because the rest you make my brain work on rebuttals. Thanks for that. Have a good one.
Our next public comment is Paul the Bold, followed by Consuelo. The topic is the litigation closed session.
Yeah, this is a case where SANDAG, among others, sued Bank of America and 7 other banks for conspiring through remarketing agents, RMAs, to fix interest rates on variable demand obligations, VRDOs. VRDOs are long-term bonds with interest rates that are variable, usually reset weekly by the RMAs. RMAs are supposed to reset the interest rates at the lowest possible rate that would allow the bond to sell at par value, and when redeemed, are supposed to resell a bond at the lowest possible rate. Allegedly, defendants who together serve as RMAs for the vast majority of the VRDO market actively conspired not to compete against each other in the market for remarketing services. Instead, beginning as early as February 2008, they worked together to keep interest rates on VRDOs artificially high. Not sure what the current status of this is, but take notes, and I hope that SANDAG stays away from VRDOs for a while. I would also like to comment that many speeches here may seem not to be SANDAG issues, but that's because you keep invading other areas, other counties, housing, and all sorts of ridiculous things. Border crossings, I mean, the Tijuana sewage thing, it's piles up. And no wonder you have to be flexible. So, please show a bit of more respect to speakers who you may think are off topic, but really aren't. Thank you.
Next is Consuelo, followed by Blair Beekman. The item is the closed session. Consuelo, you're muted.
Okay. So let's see, litigation. Well, that's definitely the real three branches of government is oil, banking, and pharmaceuticals, right? Okay, fraud, waste, and abuse, corruption all around for an agency that the majority of the county do not know exists. And yeah, it's just such a bummer that the people have to, as the lady mentioned, not only do you have to dumb it down for the people, for the common person to understand. So I don't know which lady said that, but I just kind of heard somebody say that. But anyways, that was, yeah. I guess the ones that we really need to dumb it down for are the ones serving on the board, right?
The topic is a closed session.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is litigation. Are you guys talking about litigation?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. So this is a possible future litigation. I mean, honestly, it could be the people who bought the EVs, the suckers who bought the lithium bomb EVs, who are no longer getting reaping the benefits of their purchase, and that's probably why the majority of them purchased them to begin with, and they were sucked into lies. Who knows? Future possible litigation. Anyways, I guess I just want to stress on the fact that the majority of the people do not know SANDAG exists, and my comment is relevant, is on topic, and the fact that you all are on board with the United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century is so sad, and that's a big fat lawsuit there. Treasonous.
Our last public comment is by Blair Beekman. The item being discussed is the closed session.
Yes, thank you, Beekman. Thank you for some very nice, interesting clarifications by Councilor Luqadda on the previous item. Thank you very much. I wanted to comment to this item. Actually, thank you to Paul for his amazing it seems this item is out. And it seemed to me it had that public accessibility. I could understand it, but I didn't quite know what was going on. Paul very nicely explained, so thank you for that. I wanted to quickly offer that as an example, the city of San Diego, in their closed sessions, they take the extra step to offer 2 or 3 sentences of things under for the public, just with simple explanations. Good luck in such efforts and accessibility. Thanks to the meeting today. Bye.
That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Very good. Thank you. So I'll now ask everyone who does not need to be here for closed session to please leave the room, and we will reconvene to share any reportable options. I'll now turn it over to Alfred for any reportable actions.
Thank you, Chair Huebner. The board met in closed session to discuss one matter, item 5 on the agenda, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1. That item was discussed and there is no reportable action.
Very good. This will conclude our meeting. The next Board of Directors meeting is February 27th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.